When my own daughter tried to murder me with poisoned champagne over a designer purse, I knew I had created a monster. Days later, I was sitting across from a detective who asked if I wanted to press charges against my only child. That's when I realized my family wasn't a portrait. It was a crime scene waiting to happen. If you're watching this, subscribe now and tell me in the comments if you've ever discovered someone close to you wasn't who you thought they were. The champagne glass trembled in my hand as I watched my daughter, Vanessa, smile at me from across the dinner table. Something in her eyes made my skin crawl, a glittering malice I'd never seen before. Or perhaps I'd simply refused to see it until now. "A special toast," she had said, handing me the flute herself. "To you, Mother." 40 years of motherly instinct saved my life that night. The scent was wrong, bitter, with a metallic undertone that didn't belong in Dom Perignon. I'd caught her reflection in the antique mirror as she handed me the glass, the way her lips curved just slightly at the corners, the way her eyes fixed on the champagne instead of meeting mine. 2 days earlier, she'd stormed into my study at the estate, designer heels clicking against marble floors like warning shots. "Mother, I need $100,000, she'd announced, not even bothering with a greeting. She stood there in her Saint Laurent blazer, Cartier bracelets jingling as she scrolled through her phone, showing me images of some limited edition Hermès Birkin that was an investment, not just a purse. For 32 years, I'd never denied Vanessa anything. Her father, my late husband Richard, had built Montgomery Industries from nothing, turning a small engineering firm into a Fortune 500 company before his heart gave out 10 years ago. Since then, I'd managed the family fortune, making it grow even larger. And Vanessa had grown accustomed to dipping into that wealth whenever she pleased. But something about this request, the entitlement in her voice, the dismissive way she didn't even look up from her phone, finally broke something in me. "No," I said quietly. She looked up then, blinking as though she hadn't heard me correctly. "What?" I said. "No, Vanessa. I won't waste money on your vanity. You already have 17 designer handbags collecting dust in your closet." Her face transformed, beautiful features contorting into something ugly and unfamiliar. "It's not your money to withhold. It's family money. It's my inheritance, which you'll receive when I'm gone," I replied, returning to the financial reports on my desk. "Until then, you'll have to make do with your monthly allowance." She didn't argue. She didn't plead. She simply stared at me for a long, chilling moment before walking out. That silence should have warned me. Now, as I held the champagne glass she'd handed me, that warning echoed in my mind. Our dining room was filled with family and friends celebrating my 65th birthday. Vanessa's husband Bradley sat beside her, handsome but weak-willed, always looking to her for direction. My grandchildren, 12-year-old twins Emma and Ethan, were at the far end of the table with their nanny. My sister Catherine and her husband were there, along with Richard's brother James and several board members from Montgomery Industries. 20 witnesses to what was supposed to be my murder. To Mother, Vanessa raised her own glass. May she enjoy many more years. That slight pause sent ice through my veins. I smiled, nodded, and when she looked away to speak to Bradley, I switched our glasses. "To family," I responded, watching her over the rim of what had been her glass. We drank. The champagne was crisp, perfect. I saw confusion flicker across Vanessa's face as she tasted what she had prepared for me. Then, understanding. Her eyes widened in panic, darting from her glass to my face. I met her gaze steadily, letting her see that I knew exactly what she had done. It took 47 minutes. We were midway through the main course when Vanessa's fork clattered against fine china. Her hand flew to her throat, face flushing crimson then draining to ashen white. Her body stiffened, then began to shake. "Vanessa?" Bradley stood, alarmed. "Honey, what's wrong?" She couldn't answer. Foam appeared at the corners of her perfect red lips. Her eyes, still locked on mine, filled with a desperate plea. "Someone call an ambulance." Catherine screamed. The room erupted in chaos. Plates overturned, chairs scraped back. The twins began crying. I remained seated, watching my daughter convulse on my dining room floor. I should have felt something: horror, grief, maternal panic. Instead, I felt a strange, detached calm. This was my child, my flesh and blood, who had meticulously planned my death over a handbag. Allergic reaction, someone suggested frantically. She's never had allergies, Bradley was sobbing, cradling her head. I picked up my phone and dialed 911 myself, voice steady as I gave our address, and explained that my daughter appeared to have been poisoned. Poisoned? James looked at me sharply. Why would you say that? I met his gaze without flinching. Just a suspicion. The ambulance arrived within minutes. As paramedics rushed Vanessa out on a stretcher, I noticed her Gucci purse had fallen open. Inside was a small vial with a few drops of clear liquid remaining. I slipped it into my pocket before anyone could see. Miranda, you should go with her, Catherine urged, her hand on my arm. I shook my head. Bradley should go. I'll follow with the children once I've settled things here. My sister's eyes narrowed slightly. She'd always been perceptive. What happened here tonight? I believe my daughter tried to poison me, I said quietly, and accidentally poisoned herself instead. Catherine's hand flew to her mouth. My God, Miranda, you can't be serious. I've never been more serious in my life. But why would she? A purse, I said flatly. $100,000 purse I refused to buy her. The look on Catherine's face would have been comical under other circumstances, disbelief battling with horrified realization. What are you going to do? I straightened my shoulders, smoothing down my Chanel dress. First, I'm going to make sure she survives. Then I'm going to make sure she never touches a penny of the Montgomery fortune. Miranda? She tried to kill me, Catherine. My own daughter tried to murder me at my birthday dinner. She doesn't get to walk away from that. After everyone had left, the guests departing in shocked whispers, the twins taken to my sister's house for the night, I sat alone in my study. The vial from Vanessa's purse sat on the desk before me. I didn't need to have it tested to know it contained something lethal. The question was whether it would be traceable, whether she had been clever about covering her tracks. My phone rang. Bradley. She's stable, he said without preamble. They pumped her stomach and gave her activated charcoal. They're running tests to identify the substance. Good, I replied. I'm glad she'll survive. A pause. Miranda, she's saying things. What kind of things, Bradley? Another, longer pause. She says you did this to her. That you poisoned her. I laughed, a short, brittle sound. Of course she is. The police are here. They want to speak with you. I'll be there shortly, I said, and hung up. Before leaving, I made 2 calls. The first was to Harrison Wells, the family attorney who had managed Montgomery affairs for 30 years. I need to make immediate changes to my will and all family trusts, I told him. Tonight. It's an emergency. Miranda, it's nearly midnight, he protested. Harrison, my daughter just tried to murder me. I'm not exaggerating. She poisoned a champagne glass intended for me, and through a twist of fate, drank it herself. She's currently in the hospital having her stomach pumped, and I have reason to believe she'll try again, if given the opportunity. Silence on the line. Then, I'll meet you at the hospital. We can use a conference room there. My second call was to Julian Blackwood, head of security for Montgomery Industries and a former detective. Julian, I need a full security detail, effective immediately. And I need a thorough background investigation into my daughter's activities over the past 6 months. Financial records, phone calls, internet searches, everything. Mrs. Montgomery, has something happened? Attempted murder, I said calmly. Mine. The hospital corridors were eerily quiet at 1 a.m. 2 police officers stood outside Vanessa's private room. They straightened as I approached. Mrs. Montgomery? I'm Detective Reyes. This is Detective Chen. We'd like to ask you some questions about what happened tonight. I nodded. Of course. But first, I'd like to see my daughter. Detective Reyes hesitated. Ma'am, your daughter has made some serious allegations against you. I'm sure she has, I replied. She tried to poison me tonight, Detective. When I realized what she'd done, I switched our glasses when she wasn't looking. That's why she's in that hospital bed instead of me in the morgue. Both detectives stared at me, clearly not expecting such a direct statement. That's not the story she's telling, Detective Chen said carefully. I'm sure it isn't. May I? I gestured toward the door. They stepped aside. I entered to find Vanessa pale against white sheets, and four in her arm, Bradley hovering anxiously at her side. Her eyes narrowed when she saw me. Get her out of here, she hissed. She tried to kill me. I approached the bed calmly. Hello, Vanessa. I'm glad you're going to recover. You poisoned me, she spat. At my own mother's birthday party. What kind of monster are you? I smiled thinly. You've always been good at projection, darling. I didn't give you that glass. You handed it to me. Specially made, you said. That's a lie. 20 guests saw you hand me that champagne, Vanessa. And I have the vial from your purse. Her face blanched further, eyes darting to Bradley and back to me. What vial? I don't know what you're talking about. The one containing whatever you put in my champagne. The one you weren't careful enough to dispose of. She's making this up, Vanessa appealed to Bradley. Baby, you know I wouldn't. The lab results will tell us what was in your system, I interrupted. And I'm quite certain it will match what's in that vial. So here's what's going to happen now. I sat on the edge of her bed, ignoring how she flinched away from me. You're going to drop these ridiculous accusations. You're going to tell the police you had an unexpected reaction to something you ate. And then you're going to quietly remove yourself from my life. Or what? Her voice was a venomous whisper. Or I'll press charges for attempted murder, and you can explain to your children why Mommy is in prison for trying to kill Grandma over a purse. Her eyes widened. You wouldn't. I would. I already have Julian investigating everything you've done for the past 6 months. If there's a digital trail, purchases of poison, suspicious searches, messages to accomplices, he'll find it. This is insane, Bradley interjected. Vanessa would never. Be quiet, Bradley, Vanessa and I said in unison. I continued. Additionally, I've just finished meeting with Harrison. As of 1 hour ago, you've been removed from my will. All trusts in your name have been frozen pending investigation. Your monthly allowance has been terminated. The look of shock on her face was almost worth nearly being murdered. Almost. You can't do that, she whispered. I can, and I have. Everything will now pass directly to Emma and Ethan, held in trust until they're 30. You will never control a single penny of Montgomery money. Mother, please. Her tone shifted instantly, tears welling in her eyes. I don't know what you think happened, but I would never hurt you. I love you. The performance was impressive. If I hadn't seen her true face earlier, I might have been swayed. Save the theatrics, Vanessa. You made your choice when you decided my life was worth less than a handbag. What about the twins? She tried another angle. How will we support them? Your children will want for nothing. The trusts provide for their education, healthcare, and reasonable living expenses. But you and Bradley will need to support yourselves. Bradley looked stricken. He'd married into money and had never worked a day in his life. Neither had Vanessa. This is temporary, Vanessa said, more to herself than to me. You're angry. You'll calm down. I stood. No, Vanessa. This is permanent. You tried to murder me. There's no coming back from that. As I turned to leave, she called after me, voice cracking. You can't do this to me. I'm your daughter. I paused at the door. A daughter doesn't poison her mother. Whatever you are to me now, it isn't that. The detectives were waiting outside. I spent the next hour giving them my statement, showing them the vial, explaining the background of Vanessa's request and my refusal. We'll need to test this substance, Detective Reyes said, bagging the vial. Of course. And we'll need statements from everyone who was at the dinner. They're at your disposal. Detective Chun studied me. Mrs. Montgomery, if what you're saying is true, why not press charges? I sighed. Because she's still the mother of my grandchildren. They don't deserve to lose their mother to prison, no matter what she did. They've already been hurt enough by her narcissism. That's very forgiving of you, Chin said, though her tone suggested she found it suspicious. Not forgiving. Practical. The twins are 12. They need stability. I'm making sure Vanessa can never hurt me or access family money, but sending her to prison would only traumatize Emma and Ethan further. The detectives exchanged glances. We still have to investigate, Reyes said. If we find evidence supporting attempted murder, we may have to pursue charges regardless of your wishes. I understand. Do what you must. By the time I left the hospital, dawn was breaking. Julian met me at the entrance with 2 security officers. Your home has been secured, Mrs. Montgomery. We've changed all access codes and installed additional cameras. I've also arranged for round-the-clock security personnel. Thank you, Julian. Ma'am, if I may, do you really believe your daughter would try again? I looked at him tiredly. She just lost access to $50 million, Julian. What do you think? At home, I found Catherine waiting in the kitchen, nursing a cup of coffee. She'd aged overnight, worry lines deepening around her eyes. The twins are still asleep upstairs, she said. I thought they should wake up in their own home. I nodded gratefully, pouring myself coffee. Thank you. Is it true? Did Vanessa really try to? Yes. My God, she whispered. Why? I sank into a chair across from her. Because I finally said no to her. Because she spent her entire life believing she's entitled to whatever she wants. Because Richard and I created a monster by never setting boundaries. What happens now? Now I protect myself and the twins. Vanessa and Bradley are cut off financially. I've established new trusts for Emma and Ethan that will provide for them without giving Vanessa access. She'll fight it. Let her try. I have 20 witnesses who saw her hand me that glass, plus the vial from her purse. Not to mention the toxicology report that will show exactly what she put in that champagne. Catherine reached across the table to grasp my hand. I'm so sorry, Miranda. No mother should have to endure this. For the first time since it all began, tears pricked at my eyes. I keep asking myself where I went wrong. How did I raise a daughter who would murder her own mother for money? This isn't your fault, isn't it, Richard? And I gave her everything. We never taught her the value of anything, especially not family. We sat in silence until the sound of small feet on the stairs announced the twins were awake. I quickly wiped my eyes and plastered on a smile. Emma and Ethan appeared in the doorway, still in pajamas, faces pinched with worry. Grandma? Emma asked tentatively. Is Mom okay? I opened my arms, and they both rushed into them. Your mother's going to be fine, I assured them, holding them close. She got sick last night, but the doctors are taking good care of her. Dad texted me. Ethan said, voice muffled against my shoulder. He said Mom might have to stay in the hospital for a few days. That's right. And you two will stay here with me until she's better. What made her sick? Emma asked, pulling back to look at me. I met Catherine's eyes over their heads. How much should children know about their mother's monstrosity? We're not sure yet, I said carefully. The doctors are running tests. Can we visit her? Ethan asked. In a day or two, when she's feeling stronger. When I've had time to figure out what happens next. After breakfast, I sent the twins upstairs to dress. Catherine lingered, helping me clear dishes. What will you tell them? She asked quietly. I don't know yet. They can't know the truth, that their mother tried to murder their grandmother. But I can't let them live with Vanessa anymore either. It's not safe. You'll seek custody? I have to. She's unstable, Catherine. If she'd kill her own mother over money, what else is she capable of? It won't be easy. Nothing about this will be easy. My phone rang. Harrison Wells. Miranda, we have a problem, he said without preamble. Vanessa's attorney just called me. She's contesting the changes to your will and the trusts. She's claiming you were mentally incompetent when you made the changes, and that she has evidence you've been suffering from paranoid delusions. I closed my eyes, momentarily dizzy with rage. Of course she is. There's more. She's filing for an emergency psychological evaluation, claiming you're a danger to yourself and others, specifically to her children. She's seeking temporary custody of the twins while you're evaluated. She poisoned me, Harrison. She's the one who should be evaluated. I know. But she's spinning quite a story, claiming you've been acting erratically, making bizarre accusations, threatening to cut her off for no reason. She's got Bradley backing her up, plus apparently some housekeeper who's willing to testify you've been behaving strangely. Maria, our housekeeper of 15 years. Another betrayal. How much had Vanessa paid her? What do we do? Fight back.
Hard.
I'm filing countermotions today. In the meantime, don't let those children out of your sight. If she gets a sympathetic judge, they could issue a temporary order giving her custody until this is sorted out. After hanging up, I explained the situation to Catherine. She looked horrified. She's trying to take the twins? After what she did. She knows they're her only leverage now, and her only access to the Montgomery money. A text from Julian. Found something important. Coming to you now. 20 minutes later, he arrived with a laptop. Mrs. Montgomery, I've been investigating your daughter's online activities. She wasn't as careful as she thought. He opened the computer, showing me a screen full of searches. Untraceable poisons. How to poison someone without detection. Fatal dose cyanide. How to access offshore accounts. When were these searches made? I asked. Starting 3 days ago, right after you refused to give her the money. Can you prove it was Vanessa who made these searches?
Yes.
They were done on her personal laptop, logged into her accounts. We also found encrypted emails between her and someone offering to sell pharmaceutical-grade potassium cyanide. The transaction was completed using cryptocurrency, but we can trace it back to her. Relief flooded through me. This is exactly what we need. There's more, Julian said grimly. She's been in contact with someone about having you declared mentally incompetent. These messages go back 2 months, long before your argument about the purse. She's been planning this for some time. I stared at the screen, reading messages where my daughter discussed with a medical professional how to fabricate evidence of dementia and paranoia. My God, I whispered. The purse wasn't a reason. It was just the trigger. Julian nodded. From what we can piece together, she's been embezzling from her trust fund for years, using shell companies and offshore accounts. The funds are nearly depleted. She needs access to the main Montgomery fortune. And the only way to get that is if I'm dead or declared incompetent. I finished for him. Exactly. Does she know you found this? Not yet. We accessed her accounts remotely. I stood, suddenly energized. Make copies of everything. Send it to Harrison immediately. And then, Julian prompted. And then send it to Detective Reyes. It's time Vanessa faced consequences for her actions. Julian looked concerned. Mrs. Montgomery, are you sure? Once the police have this evidence. My daughter tried to murder me, Julian. When that failed, she tried to have me declared insane and take my grandchildren away. I won't press charges for the poisoning, but I won't stand by while she attempts to destroy what's left of my family. After Julian left, I sat with Catherine in the garden, watching the twins play with their tablets, blissfully unaware of the war brewing around them. What will happen to them if Vanessa goes to prison? Catherine asked softly. They'll stay with me. I'll make sure they're protected from all of this as much as possible. And Bradley? I snorted. Bradley will run the moment he realizes there's no money coming. He's never been anything but a parasite. My phone rang again, Detective Reyes. Mrs. Montgomery, we've received some concerning evidence about your daughter. Julian sent you what he found.
Yes.
This changes things considerably. We'll need to bring your daughter in for questioning once she's medically cleared. I understand. Given the nature of these threats against you, we're also issuing an emergency protective order. She won't be able to come near you or contact you directly. What about my grandchildren? She's currently trying to get custody of them. A pause. With this evidence, I don't think any judge will grant her custody. But to be safe, you might want to file for emergency temporary custody yourself. After ending the call, I did exactly that, phoning Harrison again with the new developments. He agreed to file immediately. Miranda, he said before hanging up, prepare yourself. This is going to get ugly. It already is, I replied. That afternoon, I sat the twins down in the living room. Their innocent faces looked up at me trustingly, and my heart broke for what I had to tell them. Emma, Ethan, I need to tell you something difficult about your mother. I began gently. She's done something very wrong, and there may be some serious consequences. Is that why she's in the hospital? Emma asked.
Partly, yes.
Your mother, she tried to hurt me. Very badly. Ethan's eyes widened. Mom tried to hurt you?
Why?
She wanted money that I wouldn't give her. She's also been taking money that wasn't hers to take. Like stealing. Emma looked horrified. Yes, like stealing. What's going to happen to her? Ethan asked, his voice small. The police are investigating. She might have to go away for a while. If that happens, you would stay here with me. For how long? Emma's eyes filled with tears. I don't know yet, sweetheart. But no matter what happens, I promise you'll be safe and loved. Ethan's face hardened in a way no 12-year-old should. Did she really try to hurt you, Grandma? Yes, she did. He nodded solemnly. Then she should be punished. That's what she always tells us. If you do something bad, you get punished. Out of the mouths of babes. That evening, as I tucked the twins into bed in their rooms at my house, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. This isn't over. You've taken everything from me. Now I'll take everything from you. Vanessa, using someone else's phone to bypass the protective order. I showed the message to the security officer stationed in my hallway. He immediately contacted Julian, who promised to trace the number. Sleep eluded me that night. I sat in my study, a glass of bourbon in hand, staring at Richard's portrait above the fireplace. What would you do? I asked the painted face of my late husband. She's your daughter too. Did we create this monster together? The portrait offered no answers. But as dawn broke, I knew what I had to do. Vanessa had declared war, and I had spent a lifetime building an empire. I knew how to fight. I would not just defend myself. I would make sure Vanessa Montgomery never threatened me or those children again. The next morning brought news. Vanessa had been discharged from the hospital and immediately taken into police custody. She was being charged with attempted murder, conspiracy, fraud, and embezzlement. Bradley, predictably, had vanished. Julian's team tracked his credit card to the airport, a one-way ticket to the Cayman Islands, purchased hours after Vanessa's arrest. Should we stop him? Julian asked.
No, irraplia.
Let the rat flee this sinking ship. As I prepared to take the twins to school, Detective Reyes called again. Mrs. Montgomery, your daughter is asking to speak with you. I have a protective order against her. Yes, but she's insistent. Says she has information you need to hear. Something about the twins. My blood ran cold. What about them? She wouldn't say. Only that she needs to speak with you directly. I closed my eyes, thinking, was this another trap? Or did she actually have something important to tell me about my grandchildren? I'll come in, but I want officers present the entire time. Of course. At the precinct, I was led to an interview room. Vanessa sat across the table, still pale from her hospital stay, dressed in an orange jumpsuit that clashed horribly with her complexion. Her perfect manicure was chipped, her hair limp. She looked nothing like the polished socialite she'd always been. You have 5 minutes, I said coldly, taking a seat. What about the twins? Vanessa leaned forward, a small smile playing on her lips. Did you ever wonder why they look nothing like Bradley? The words hung in the air between us, heavy with implication. I kept my face carefully neutral, though my heart hammered against my ribs. What are you talking about? I asked, my voice steady despite the sudden dryness in my throat. Vanessa's smile widened, cruel and knowing. Oh, Mother. Surely you've noticed? Those green eyes? That stubborn chin? They're spitting images of James.
James.
My brother-in-law. Richard's younger brother. You're lying, I said automatically, though my mind was racing, connecting I'd subconsciously avoided for years. The twins' coloring that matched neither Vanessa's honey blonde nor Bradley's dark brown. The slight cleft in Ethan's chin, just like James's. Emma's distinctive laugh that had always reminded me of someone I couldn't quite place. DNA doesn't lie, Vanessa replied smugly. I have the test results. Bradley doesn't know, of course, but James does. The room seemed to tilt slightly. James knows. has known since before they were born. He's been paying me to keep quiet all these years. She leaned back, satisfied with the bomb she'd dropped. That's my insurance policy. If I go down for this, that information goes public. Think what that will do to the precious Montgomery name, the chairman of Montgomery Industries having an affair with his niece, fathering her children while she was married to another man. The detectives behind the glass would be hearing every word. This wasn't just a threat against me. It was Vanessa's attempt at leverage against the prosecution. Why are you telling me this? I asked, though I already knew. Drop the charges. Reinstate my trusts and inheritance. Let me have custody of the twins. Do that, and this stays our little secret. I studied my daughter's face, the face I'd once seen in baby pictures, in school portraits, in wedding photos. When had she become this stranger? This manipulative, cold-blooded creature who would use her own children as pawns? And if I refuse? Then everyone learns the truth. The twins learn their entire lives have been a lie. The Montgomery name gets dragged through every tabloid in the country. James loses everything, his position, probably his marriage. And you. She smiled thinly. You get to explain to the board why the company is suddenly embroiled in a scandal that's tanking the stock price. I stood up, smoothing my skirt with hands that didn't tremble despite the earthquake happening inside me. You've miscalculated, Vanessa. Again. Her smile faltered. What? You think this gives you power? It doesn't. It just proves how far you're willing to go to hurt people who love you. I'm not bluffing, Mother. I have the DNA tests. I believe you. I moved toward the door. But what you've never understood is that there are things more important than reputation or money. The twins' well-being, for instance. You can't just walk away. Her voice rose, composure cracking. I'll ruin everything. I turned back, hand on the doorknob. You already tried to murder me, Vanessa. Do you really think I'm afraid of a scandal after that? I shook my head. Do what you must. I'll protect those children from you regardless. Her face contorted with rage. You self-righteous bitch. You think you're so perfect? You have no idea what else I know, what else I can reveal. Goodbye, Vanessa. I left her screaming threats at my back. Outside the interview room, Detective Reyes waited, his expression grave. You heard? I asked. He nodded. Every word. I'm sorry, Mrs. Montgomery. Don't be. My daughter is a master manipulator. She'll say anything to save herself. Still, those are serious allegations. Yes, they are. I straightened my shoulders. And now I need to have a conversation with my brother-in-law. The detective hesitated. Mrs. Montgomery, I should warn you. If there's truth to what she's saying, it could complicate matters. How so? If your brother-in-law has been paying your daughter to conceal this situation, it establishes a pattern. Money in exchange for silence.
Some might see that as a motive. A motive?
For what? For you to want your daughter silenced permanently. It could support her claim that you poisoned her, not the other way around. The implication hit me like a slap. You can't be serious. I showed you the evidence, her searches for poison, the cryptocurrency transaction. And that evidence is compelling, he acknowledged. But defense attorneys can spin narratives. Just be careful. And if you speak with your brother-in-law, you might want your attorney present. I left the police station with my mind whirling. The twins were at school, which gave me a few hours to process this bombshell and decide how to proceed. I called Harrison immediately. I need you to meet me at James Montgomery's office. Right now. Miranda, what's happened? I'll explain when you get there. And Harrison? Bring a DNA test kit. James's corner office at Montgomery Industries occupied the entire top floor of our downtown headquarters. The company he and Richard had built together from nothing now employed over 5,000 people and generated billions in annual revenue. Since Richard's death, James had served as chairman while I maintained controlling interest. His secretary tried to stop me as I strode past her desk. Mrs. Montgomery, he's in a meeting. I ignored her, pushing open his office door. James sat behind his massive desk, 2 board members across from him. All 3 men looked up in surprise. Gentlemen, I said coolly, I need the room. Family emergency. To their credit, the board members recognized the steal in my voice and quickly gathered their papers. James remained seated, his expression guarded as they left. Miranda, this is highly irregular. Are you the father of my grandchildren? The color drained from his face. Behind me, Harrison entered the office and quietly closed the door.
Who told you that?
James managed.
Vanessa.
From a jail cell, where she's being held for trying to murder me. James stood abruptly, rounding the desk. What are you talking about? Vanessa's in jail? For attempted murder. Don't pretend you don't know. She's been embezzling money for years. When I refused to give her more, she tried to poison me. By sheer luck, she drank from the wrong glass. He sank into one of the chairs, looking genuinely shocked. My God, Miranda. Are you all right? No, James, I'm not all right. My daughter tried to kill me, and now she's threatening to expose that you fathered her children. So I'll ask again, is it true? His silence was answer enough. I felt Harrison's steady presence behind me, witnessing this implosion of what remained of my family. How could you? I whispered. She's your niece. Richard's daughter. James ran a hand over his face. It was complicated. Uncomplicated for me. He sighed heavily. It started at the charity gala, the year before Richard died. You remember, you couldn't attend because you had pneumonia. Vanessa was going through that rough patch with Bradley. We both had too much to drink, started talking. Spare me the sordid details. I cut him off. When did you learn the twins were yours? Vanessa called me when she was 3 months pregnant. Said there was a possibility. After they were born, she had DNA tests done. And you've been paying her since then? He nodded miserably. At first, it was just to help with expenses. Then, after Richard died and you took control of the company, she started asking for more. Threatening to go public. How much? I demanded. $10,000 a month. Then 20. Last year, she wanted $50,000 monthly, plus lump sums whenever she had unexpected expenses. He looked up, his eyes haunted. I couldn't stop it. If this got out, you'd lose everything. I finished for him. Your position, your reputation. Possibly even Nancy. His wife of 30 years. Yes. His voice was barely audible. Harrison stepped forward. Mr. Montgomery, I've brought a DNA test kit. We'll need a sample from you today. James didn't even protest, just opened his mouth for the cheek swab like a condemned man accepting his last meal. What happens now? He asked after Harrison sealed the sample. Now we determine what's best for the children, I said coldly. They're the only innocent parties in this mess. Miranda, please. Nancy can't know about this. You should have thought about that before sleeping with your niece. His face crumpled. I've paid for that mistake every day for 13 years. Not nearly enough, I replied. And now those children may pay the highest price of all. I turned to leave, then paused. Were you involved in Vanessa's plan to kill me?
What? No.
Miranda, I would never. She's been embezzling from her trust fund. She needed access to the main Montgomery fortune. Did you help her plan this?
God, no.
I had no idea she was capable of. He trailed off, looking sick. The money I gave her was from my personal accounts. I never knew she was stealing from her trust as well. I studied him, searching for signs of deception. James had always been the smoother of the Montgomery brothers, more polished, more political. Richard had been the engineering genius, James the business tactician. If I find out you were involved, I said quietly, I will destroy you, brother-in-law or not. Back at home, I sat in Richard's study, surrounded by the artifacts of our life together. Photos of Vanessa as a child, smiling gap-toothed at the camera. Our wedding portrait. Family vacations. The twins as infants in Vanessa's arms, with Bradley proudly beside her. A life frozen in time. Harrison called with updates. The DNA test was being rushed, results expected within 48 hours. Vanessa's bail hearing was scheduled for tomorrow. The prosecutor believed they had enough evidence to hold her without bail, given the severity of the charges and the risk she posed to me. What about the twins? I asked. Will this paternity issue affect my custody petition? It complicates things, Harrison admitted. But your primary argument remains strong. Vanessa attempted to murder you and is now facing serious criminal charges. No judge would place children with her under these circumstances. And James? Could he seek custody? He could try, but he'd have to admit publicly to fathering children with his niece. I doubt he's prepared to do that. After hanging up, I called Catherine. I needed my sister now more than ever. She arrived within the hour, her face lined with concern. You sounded terrible on the phone. What's happened now? I told her everything. Vanessa's revelation, James's confirmation, the tangled web of blackmail and deceit that had been going on for years under my nose. Oh, Miranda, she breathed when I finished. Those poor children. I don't know what to tell them, I admitted, my composure finally cracking. How do you explain to 12-year-olds that their mother tried to kill their grandmother? That their father isn't their father? That their real father is their great-uncle who's been paying their mother hush money for years? Catherine moved to sit beside me, taking my hand. You don't. Not yet. They're too young to process all of this. But they'll find out eventually, especially if Vanessa makes good on her threat to expose everything. Then we'll help them through it. Together. I squeezed her hand gratefully. I'm so afraid for them, Catherine. They've already been through so much with Vanessa and Bradley's toxic marriage. Now this. Children are resilient. And they have you, someone who truly puts their well-being first. We sat in silence for a moment before Catherine asked gently, Does Nancy know? About James and Vanessa? I don't think so. Not yet. Will you tell her? I sighed heavily. I don't know. Part of me wants to burn everything down, let everyone face the consequences of their actions. But that would hurt the twins. And Nancy's a good woman. She doesn't deserve this humiliation. No, Catherine agreed, she doesn't. But secrets have a way of coming out eventually. Vanessa's counting on that. It's her only leverage now. My phone rang. Julian Blackwood. Mrs. Montgomery, we've found something concerning. Bradley's credit card was just used to purchase a flight from Grand Cayman to Mexico City, departing tomorrow. I thought he was running away. Why does that concern you? Because we've been monitoring Vanessa's commissary account at the detention center. She received a large deposit this morning, made anonymously, but we traced it back to a Cayman Islands account. I straightened. Bradley's funding her defense. It appears so. And there's more. Before his departure, Bradley emptied your daughter's personal safe deposit box at First National. According to our sources, it contained jewelry worth approximately $2 million, jewelry you had given Vanessa over the years. Family heirlooms. Pieces that had belonged to Richard's mother, to my grandmother. Pieces I'd planned to pass down to the twins one day. He's liquidating assets, I realized. Getting ready for whatever comes next. That would be my assessment, yes. Can we stop him? The jewelry technically belonged to your daughter. Unless you can prove otherwise, it's not theft. After hanging up, I explained the situation to Catherine. He's gathering resources, she said. But for what? To fund Vanessa's defense, clearly. But there's something else. I paced the room thinking. Bradley's not clever enough to orchestrate this on his own. He's following instructions. From Vanessa? She's in jail. Limited communication. No, there's someone else involved. The realization hit us both simultaneously. James, Catherine breathed. It makes sense. He has the most to lose if this scandal breaks. He'd do anything to keep it quiet. Even help Vanessa fight the attempted murder charges? If she goes to prison for trying to kill me, she has nothing left to lose. She'd expose him out of pure spite. I picked up my phone again, dialing Julian. I need you to look into James Montgomery's activities over the past 48 hours. Phone records, financial transactions, everything. And put someone on Bradley in Grand Cayman. I want to know who he meets with, who he calls. The twins returned from school, subdued and confused. Their father had called them, apparently, spinning some story about a business emergency abroad. Their mother was still recovering in the hospital. Lies upon lies. I helped them with homework, order their favorite pizza for dinner, tried to maintain some semblance of normalcy while my world collapsed around me. After tucking them in for the night, I returned to the study to find Catherine on her laptop. "What are you doing?" I asked. "Research," she replied, not looking up. "About inheritance laws in cases of complicated paternity. And it's a legal quagmire. But one thing's clear. If James is legally established as the twins' father, he could potentially claim they're entitled to a share of the Montgomery fortune as Richard's brother's children. They already are entitled to it as Vanessa's children." "Yes, but the route of inheritance matters. If James is acknowledged as their father, it gives him standing to be involved in decisions about their inheritance." So, Vanessa wasn't just blackmailing James for cash payments. She was setting up a long-term play for control of Montgomery Industries. Catherine nodded grimly. "That would be my guess." The next morning brought Vanessa's bail hearing. I attended despite Harrison's advice to stay away, sitting in the back of the courtroom. To my surprise, James was there too, slipping in just before proceedings began. We exchanged a brief, loaded glance before focusing on the proceedings. Vanessa looked terrible. Jail clearly didn't agree with her. Her usual perfect appearance was marred by the institutional jumpsuit, the lack of makeup, the harsh fluorescent lighting. But her eyes were sharp as ever, calculating and cold as she surveyed the courtroom. She spotted me, then James. A small, satisfied smile curved her lips. Her attorney, a sharp-looking woman I didn't recognize, argued passionately that Vanessa posed no flight risk, that she was a mother of two with deep community ties, that the evidence against her was circumstantial at best. The prosecutor countered with the mountain of digital evidence we'd uncovered: the searches for poisons, the cryptocurrency purchase, the planned conspiracy to have me declared mentally incompetent. "Furthermore, Your Honor," he added, "since her arrest, the defendant has made explicit threats against the victim, her own mother. She presents an ongoing danger to Mrs. Montgomery and potentially to others." The judge, a severe-looking woman in her 60s, peered at Vanessa over her reading glasses. "Ms. Montgomery, these are extremely serious charges. Attempted murder, conspiracy, embezzlement. The evidence presented suggests not just a momentary lapse of judgment, but a calculated, premeditated attempt to cause death." Vanessa lowered her eyes demurely. "Your Honor, I'm innocent of these charges. My mother has been experiencing cognitive decline for some time now. These accusations stem from her increasing paranoia and confusion." My hands clenched in my lap. "The audacity. That will be for a jury to decide," the judge replied coolly. "Given the severity of the charges and the evidence presented, bail is denied. The defendant will remain in custody until trial." Vanessa's composure shattered. "You can't do this. I have children who need me." "Perhaps you should have considered that before allegedly attempting to murder their grandmother," the judge responded unmoved. Next case. As Vanessa was led away, her eyes locked with mine. The hatred there was palpable, a physical force that made me recoil slightly. She shifted her gaze to James, mouthing something I couldn't read from my position. Whatever it was, it made the blood drain from his face. Outside the courtroom, I confronted James. "What did she say to you?" He looked around nervously. "Not here. Meet me at the office in an hour."
"No. We talk now."
My car. In the privacy of my town car, James finally spoke. "She's going to tell Nancy.
Today."
She has someone ready to deliver a letter with the DNA test results if she doesn't call by noon." "Of course she does," I said wearily. "She's making sure everyone goes down with her." "Miranda, I can't let this happen. Nancy will leave me. The board will force me out. Everything I've worked for." "Stop it, James. This isn't about you or your reputation. It's about those children. Your children, apparently." He flinched. "What can we do?"
"We?"
"There is no we in this situation. You created this mess by sleeping with your niece. You perpetuated it by paying her blackmail money for years instead of coming clean. And now I have to wonder if you were involved in her plan to kill me." "I wasn't. Miranda, you have to believe me." "I don't have to believe anything you say. Right now, my only priority is protecting those twins from the fallout of what you and Vanessa have done. What about Nancy? Doesn't she deserve protection too? I studied him. This man I'd known for nearly 40 years, my late husband's brother, apparently the father of my grandchildren. Had I ever really known him at all? You need to tell her yourself, I said finally, before Vanessa's messenger arrives. She deserves to hear it from you, not from a letter. He buried his face in his hands. I can't. Then you're a coward as well as an adulterer. I opened the car door. Get out. I have nothing more to say to you, Miranda.
Get out.
After he left, I called Harrison. I need to amend my will and the company's succession plans. Immediately. Again? Miranda, we just made changes 2 days ago. That was before I knew James Montgomery fathered my grandchildren in an affair with his niece. Silence on the line. Then, I'll clear my afternoon. By evening, everything was in place. My revised will explicitly named Emma and Ethan as my heirs, with Catherine as their guardian should anything happen to me before they came of age. The Montgomery Industries succession plan now bypassed James entirely, with a provision for professional management until the twins were old enough to take control if they chose to. I was finishing dinner with the children when Julian called. Mrs. Montgomery, Bradley Harrington just landed at Mexico City International Airport. He was met by a woman matching the description of Maria Santos. Maria, our former housekeeper. The one who had apparently been willing to testify that I was experiencing cognitive decline. Interesting. What else? They took a taxi to a private residence in Polanco, an upscale neighborhood. The property is owned by a shell company that traces back to Landmark Investments, James's personal holding company, I said, the pieces clicking into place. He's been planning this for some time. It appears so. There's more. We checked the visitor logs at the detention center. James Montgomery visited Vanessa yesterday morning, before her bail hearing. He claimed he had no idea she was in jail. That was not accurate. They spoke for nearly an hour. After hanging up, I sat in Richard's study, thinking. The conspiracy was larger and more intricate than I'd imagined. Vanessa and James. Bradley and Maria. How many others were involved? How deep did this go? My phone rang again, an unknown number. Miranda Montgomery. I answered cautiously. Mrs. Montgomery, this is Nancy, James's wife. Her voice sounded strange, hollow and distant. Is it true? My heart sank. Nancy, I think this conversation would be better in person.
Is it
true? Each word was enunciated precisely, as if it cost her physical pain to speak. Yes, I said simply. I only learned of it myself yesterday. A sound escaped her, half laugh, half sob. 13 years. 13 years I've been attending family functions with her, smiling at her across dinner tables, buying Christmas presents for those children. And all this time. Nancy, I am so sorry. Did Richard know?
No.
The affair happened the year before he died. The twins were born after. Another of those terrible laughs. Small mercies, I suppose. At least my brother-in-law was spared knowing his brother betrayed him too. Where are you now? Do you have someone with you? I'm at the Fairmont. I couldn't stay in that house another minute after James confessed. I haven't decided what to do next. Come stay with me, I offered impulsively. You shouldn't be alone right now. With you? She sounded surprised. Aren't you angry with me? With you? Why would I be angry with you? Because I didn't see it. I didn't stop it. Those children, your grandchildren. Nancy, listen to me. You are not responsible for James's actions or Vanessa's. You're as much a victim in this as anyone. Except you, she said quietly. My God, Miranda. She tried to kill you. Yes, well, she didn't succeed. I'll come in the morning, if that's all right. I've taken a sleeping pill. I don't think I should drive. Of course. I'll send a car for you at 9. After we hung up, I checked on the twins. They were both asleep, faces peaceful in repose. Looking at them now, the resemblance to James was obvious. How had I missed it all these years? perhaps because I'd never had reason to look for it. My phone buzzed with a text from Julian. Update on James Montgomery. He just booked a flight to Zurich, departing tomorrow morning. Running away. Like Bradley. I forwarded the information to Harrison with instructions to freeze James's access to all Montgomery Industries accounts and systems immediately. Then I called Detective Reyes. Detective, I have reason to believe my brother-in-law James Montgomery may have been involved in the conspiracy to murder me. What evidence do you have of this? He asked. I laid it all out. The affair with Vanessa, the years of blackmail payments, the secret meeting before the bail hearing, the preparations in Mexico, the sudden flight booking to Switzerland. This is complicated, Reyes said when I finished. The paternity issue gives him motive to want the situation contained, but it's not direct evidence of involvement in the murder plot. He visited her in jail before claiming he had no idea she'd been arrested. He's been preparing a bolt hole in Mexico, where Bradley and Maria are already waiting. And now he's fleeing the country. What more do you need? A paper trail connecting him directly to the poison purchase would help. Or communications discussing the murder plan. Julian is still going through their records. If it exists, he'll find it. In the meantime, Reyes said, we can question Mr. Montgomery about his visit to Ms. Montgomery in jail and the contradictions in his statements. That might be enough to delay his departure. By morning, everything had changed again. James had been detained at the airport, his passport flagged. Nancy arrived at my home, hollow-eyed but composed. And Harrison called with news that would alter the course of everything. The DNA test results are in, he said. You'd better sit down for this. Just tell me, Harrison. James Montgomery is not the father of the twins. I nearly dropped the phone.
What?
But he confessed. He's been paying Vanessa blackmail for years. The DNA doesn't lie, Miranda. There's a 0% chance he's the biological father of either child. Then who? There's more, Harrison continued. I had them run the samples against the other DNA profile we have on file, from when Richard was diagnosed with that genetic heart condition 5 years before his death. And it's a match. Richard is the biological father of the twins. The room seemed to spin around me. That's impossible. Richard died before they were conceived. Not if they were conceived via IVF using stored sperm, which, according to the fertility clinic records my investigator just obtained, is exactly what happened. Vanessa and Bradley underwent IVF treatments 14 years ago, using sperm Richard had banked years earlier when he was diagnosed with that benign tumor, the one they were concerned might affect his fertility if it required radiation. I sank into a chair, trying to process this information. So the twins really are Richard's biological children. But why would Vanessa claim they were James's? Why would James pay her blackmail if it wasn't true? I don't know yet, but there's one more thing you should know. According to these records, there was a specific provision in the IVF agreement. Richard's stored genetic material was only to be used if both he and the intended mother, you, consented, or in the event of his death, with your consent as his widow. I never gave consent for Vanessa to use Richard's sperm. Exactly. Which means the clinic violated its legal and ethical obligations. Or Vanessa forged my consent. I finished for him. Which would be fraud.
Yes.
And given the timing, potentially inheritance fraud. Remember, this happened right after Richard died, when the estate was being settled. The pieces were falling into place. She was trying to create additional heirs to increase her share of the inheritance. That would be my guess. But why involve James? Why blackmail him with paternity that wasn't even real? That, Harrison said, is the million-dollar question. After hanging up, I shared the news with Nancy, who had been waiting patiently in the living room. So James isn't, but he admitted. She struggled to process the information. He either believed Vanessa's lie, or he was part of a larger deception, I said. Either way, he's been lying to both of us for years. Nancy's expression hardened. I want to speak with him. He's being questioned by the police right now.
Good.
Let him sweat. She took a steadying breath. What happens now? Now, I said, rising from my chair. We go to the source. It's time I had another conversation with my daughter. Vanessa looked even worse than she had at the bail hearing. The orange jumpsuit hung on her frame, her eyes sunken with fatigue or stress. But that calculating intelligence still burned behind them. "Back so soon, Mother?" she asked as I took a seat across from her. "Miss me already?" The DNA results came back. I said without preamble, "James isn't the father of the twins." For the first time since this nightmare began, I saw genuine shock on my daughter's face. It was quickly masked, but that flash told me everything I needed to know. "Of course he is," she recovered. "I have the test results to prove it. Forged, obviously. Just like the consent forms you submitted to the fertility clinic to use your father's stored sperm without my knowledge." Her face went completely still. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Don't bother, Vanessa. We have the clinic records. The twins are Richard's biological children, conceived via IVF after his death, using genetic material that you had no legal right to access." "You can't prove that." "Actually, we can. The clinic keeps detailed records of all consent forms. I never signed one allowing you to use Richard's sperm, which means you committed fraud." She said nothing, but I could see her mind racing, recalculating. "What I don't understand," I continued, "is why you dragged James into this. Why blackmail him with paternity that wasn't even real?" Vanessa's lips curved in a humorless smile. "Because he was sleeping with someone else who wasn't his wife. He assumed the twins were his because of the timing. I never actually told him they were. I just implied it strongly enough that he filled in the blanks himself. And once he started paying, it was too late for him to back out. Who is he sleeping with? Does it matter? Some intern at the company. Young enough to be his daughter. Disgusting, really." "So, you manufactured a fake paternity claim to blackmail your uncle over an affair that had nothing to do with you?" She shrugged. "It was convenient. I needed money that wasn't tied to my trust fund. Money you couldn't track." "For what?" "Let's just say Bradley has expensive habits that his trust fund couldn't cover. And I had investments that needed funding." "Does Bradley know about the IVF with Richard's sperm?" Something flickered in her eyes. "Bradley knows what he needs to know. So that's a no." I leaned forward. "He thinks the twins are his biological children, doesn't he? Just like James thought they were his. You've been lying to everyone." "I did what I had to do to protect my future. And my children's future." "By committing fraud? By blackmailing your uncle? By trying to murder your mother?" "You left me no choice," she hissed, mask slipping. "You were going to cut me off. After everything I've done to secure the Montgomery legacy. What you've done is break the law in multiple ways. And for what? Money you were already entitled to as Richard's daughter? It wasn't enough. It's never been enough. Do you have any idea what it costs to maintain our lifestyle? The houses, the staff, the schools, the club memberships. So get a job, Vanessa, like normal people do." She laughed bitterly. "A job? I'm a Montgomery. We don't work for other people." "No, you just try to kill family members when they don't give you what you want." I stood up. "Goodbye, Vanessa. I doubt we'll speak again before your trial." "Wait," she called as I reached the door. "What about the twins? What are you going to tell them?" I turned back. "The truth. That their grandfather was a good man who would have loved them very much. That their grandmother will always protect them. And that their mother made choices that mean she can't be part of their lives anymore. You can't keep my children from me. Watch me." Outside the detention center, I called Julian with instructions to dig deeper into Bradley's activities and finances. If Vanessa was telling the truth about his expensive habits, I needed to know what they were and whether they posed any risk to the twins. Next, I called Harrison. "I need to move forward with a custody petition immediately. And contact the clinic. I want to pursue charges for the unauthorized use of Richard's genetic material." "Already on it." "And Miranda?" The prosecutor called. "They're adding fraud charges to Vanessa's case based on the clinic records." Good. The tighter the case against her, the less likely she'd ever threaten my family again. When I arrived home, I found Nancy and Catherine in the kitchen, talking quietly over tea. They looked up as I entered. "How did it go?" Catherine asked. "About as expected. Vanessa admitted to blackmailing James, but claims he was actually having an affair with an intern, not with her. Nancy's hand trembled slightly as she set down her cup. That matches what the detective told me after they questioned James. Apparently, he confessed to the affair with the intern and to paying Vanessa to keep quiet about it. He believed the twins might be his because of a one-time encounter with Vanessa at that charity gala. Which never happened, I said. She played him, just like she's played all of us. And the twins? Catherine asked gently. They're really Richard's?
Yes.
Genetically, they're his children, conceived after his death using stored sperm that Vanessa accessed fraudulently. I sank into a chair. Which means they're my late husband's children and my grandchildren at the same time. How do I even begin to explain that to them? You don't, Nancy said firmly. Not until they're old enough to understand. For now, they're just your grandchildren who need stability and love. I nodded gratefully. Despite everything that had happened, Nancy's innate decency remained intact. What will you do now? I asked her. She smiled sadly. File for divorce. Sell the house. Start over somewhere new. You don't have to leave, I said. This is your home too.
It was. But now.
She shook her head. Too many memories. Too many lies. Before I could respond, my phone rang, Detective Reyes again. Mrs. Montgomery, we have a situation. Your brother-in-law, James Montgomery, has been found unconscious in his holding cell. Initial assessment suggests a suicide attempt. I closed my eyes briefly. Is he alive? Yes, but in critical condition. He's been transported to Memorial Hospital. After hanging up, I relayed the news to the others. Oh my God, Nancy whispered, face ashen. I should go to him. Are you sure? Catherine asked gently. After everything he's done? Nancy stood, gathering her purse. 30 years of marriage doesn't just vanish, even after a betrayal like this. I can't just not go. I understood. Despite everything, there were bonds not easily broken. I'll drive you, I offered. As we prepared to leave, Julian called again. Mrs. Montgomery, we found something significant in Bradley Harrington's financial records. Large transfers to offshore accounts in the Cayman Islands, Panama, and Belize. The amounts match known payment structures used in. Used in what, Julian? He hesitated. Contract killings, Mrs. Montgomery. It appears Mr. Harrington may have been attempting to arrange your murder through channels separate from your daughter's poisoning attempt. The floor seemed to drop from beneath me. Are you certain? Not yet. But the pattern is concerning, especially given his current whereabouts and the company he's keeping. Find him, I said, my voice hardening. Whatever it takes. I hung up, mind racing. If Bradley had been trying to arrange my murder independently of Vanessa's attempt, it suggested a larger conspiracy than I'd imagined. And if he was now in Mexico with Maria, who had access to my home, my food, my medicine, change of plans, I told Nancy and Catherine. We need to get the twins and go somewhere secure.
Now.
What's going on? Catherine asked, alarmed by the sudden shift in my demeanor. Bradley may have hired someone to kill me, I said, already moving toward the stairs. Someone separate from Vanessa's attempt. Nancy gasped. Why would he? Same reason as Vanessa. Money. 50 million reasons to be exact. I called up to the second floor. Emma, Ethan, come down please right now. Where will we go? Catherine asked, following me as I strode to Richard's study and unlocked the hidden wall safe. The lake house. It's isolated, secure, and few people know about it. I removed a small handgun, checking that it was loaded before slipping it into my purse. Richard had insisted I learn to shoot after a series of home invasions in our neighborhood years ago. I never imagined I'd need the skill to protect myself from my own family. The twins appeared at the study door, confused and apprehensive. Grandma? What's happening? Emma asked. I forced a reassuring smile. We're going on a little trip, darlings. Just for a few days. Like an adventure. But we have school tomorrow, Ethan protested. You're getting a few days off. Isn't that exciting? Now quickly pack a bag, just essentials. We need to leave in 15 minutes. As they reluctantly headed upstairs, I turned to Nancy. You should go to the hospital. James needs someone right now, even if it's just to say goodbye. She nodded shakily. Will you be all right? We'll be fine. Julian is sending security to escort us to the lake house. I squeezed her arm. Be careful. We still don't know how far this conspiracy extends. I'll drive her to the hospital, Catherine offered, then meet you at the lake house tonight. Thank you, I said gratefully. In the chaos of betrayal, it was a comfort to know some family bonds remained unbroken. After they left, I called Julian. We're heading to the lake house. Have your team meet us there. Already en route, he confirmed. I've also alerted local authorities to be on the lookout for Bradley Harrington. His flight from Mexico City to Vancouver leaves in 3 hours.
Vancouver?
Why would he go there? Unknown. But we're tracking all his movements. If he sets foot on U.S. soil, we'll know. Within the hour, we were on the road, the twins quiet in the back seat of my Mercedes, 2 security vehicles, one ahead, one behind, escorting us out of the city. I caught Emma studying me in the rearview mirror. Grandma, is Mom coming home soon? She asked tentatively. The question I'd been dreading.
No, sweetheart.
Your mother has done some things that mean she can't come home for a while. Is that why Dad went away too? Ethan asked.
Yes.
Your parents have made some very poor choices. Are they getting divorced? Emma's voice was small. I don't know yet. But whatever happens between your parents, it doesn't change how much I love you both. Ethan leaned forward. Aunt Catherine said Mom tried to hurt you. Is that true? I gripped the steering wheel tighter. How much should I tell them? They deserved some truth, but the full reality was too horrific for 12-year-olds to bear. Your mother and I had a serious disagreement, I said carefully. She did something very wrong, and now she has to face the consequences of her actions. Did she go to jail? Emma asked, eyes wide. Tyler Miller's dad went to jail for stealing money from his company. Perceptive child. Yes, she's in jail right now. But the situation is complicated, and I don't want you to worry about adult problems. But we're not babies, Ethan protested. We deserve to know what's happening to our family. Out of the mouths of babes. You're right, I conceded. When we get to the lake house, we'll sit down, and I'll explain everything that you need to know right now. I promise. That seemed to satisfy them temporarily. They retreated into their devices for the remainder of the 2-hour drive to the Montgomery Lake House, a secluded 6-bedroom property on 50 wooded acres, with its own dock and boathouse. Richard and I had purchased it as a retreat from the business world, a place where family could gather away from prying eyes. Now it would serve as our fortress. Julian's security team had arrived ahead of us, sweeping the property for any threats. The team leader, a former military man named Collier, met us at the gate. All clear, Mrs. Montgomery. We've secured the perimeter and set up surveillance. No one gets in without us knowing. Thank you, Mr. Collier. I turned to the twins. Go inside and pick your rooms. I need to speak with these gentlemen for a moment. Once the children were out of earshot, I addressed the security team. I want to be absolutely clear. Those children are to be protected at all costs. If their father or anyone associated with him attempts to approach them, stop them by any means necessary.
Understood, Mom.
We have men stationed at all access points. The boat dock is also covered. Good. Their Aunt Catherine will be joining us tonight. No one else is authorized to enter the property. Inside, the lake house welcomed us with familiar comfort. The scent of pine, the soaring windows overlooking the water, the river rock fireplace dominating the great room. For a moment, I could almost pretend we were here for a normal family weekend. Almost. I checked my phone. A text from Nancy. At hospital. Jay's stable but unconscious. Police have officers stationed outside room. At least James was still alive. Despite everything, I couldn't wish death on Richard's brother. There had been enough tragedy in our family. The twins had settled into their usual rooms and were exploring the house, as if rediscovering an old friend. We'd spent many summers here when they were younger, before Vanessa's obsession with status had deemed the lake house too rustic for her sophisticated tastes. I prepared a simple dinner, maintaining the illusion of normalcy. After we ate, I fulfilled my promise to explain the situation. Your mother did something very serious, I began carefully as we sat before the fireplace. She tried to hurt me because she wanted money that I wouldn't give her. What did she do? Emma asked, eyes wide. She put something harmful in a drink she gave me. Something that could have made me very sick. Like poison? Ethan's voice was incredulous. That's what Aunt Catherine meant. I nodded gravely.
Yes.
Fortunately, I realized something was wrong and didn't drink it. But your mother accidentally drank it herself. That's why she went to the hospital, Emma realized. But why would she try to poison you? Because I refused to give her money for expensive things she wanted. And because she's been taking money that wasn't hers for a long time. When I discovered that, she was afraid of the consequences. So, she's in jail for trying to poison you? Ethan asked.
Yes.
And for taking money that didn't belong to her. Emma's lip trembled. Is she going to prison? For how long? I don't know yet, sweetheart. The court will decide that. What about Dad? Ethan asked. Did he try to hurt you too? I hesitated. Your father may have been involved in your mother's bad decisions. The police are investigating. So we can't live with Mom or Dad anymore? Emma's voice cracked. Where will we go? I moved to sit between them, putting an arm around each child. You'll stay with me. I'll take care of you, just like I always have. Forever? Ethan asked. For as long as you need me, I promised. You're Montgomery's. And Montgomerys take care of their own. They seemed to accept this, though I could see the wheels turning in their young minds, processing this new reality where their parents were criminals rather than the affluent socialites they'd appeared to be. There's something else you should know, I added, deciding they deserved at least part of the truth about their parentage. Something special about you both. They looked at me expectantly. Your grandfather Richard, my husband, is actually your biological father. Confusion crossed their faces. But Grandpa died before we were born, Emma said.
He did.
But before he died, doctors took some of his genetic material and froze it in case he and I wanted more children later. After he died, your mother used that material to have you. So, Grandpa is our real dad. Ethan was trying to work it out. Not dad. Genetically speaking, yes. Richard Montgomery is your biological father. Does that mean you're a mom? Emma asked, brow furrowed.
No, sweetheart.
Your mother is still your mother. I'm still your grandmother. It's just that your grandfather is also your biological father. It's complicated, I know. So we're like special science babies? Ethan seemed almost excited by this concept. I smiled despite myself. Yes, I suppose you are. Cool, he decided, apparently satisfied with this explanation. Emma was more thoughtful. Did Dad, I mean Bradley, know about this? I don't think so, I said honestly. Your mother kept many secrets. Is that why you brought us here? Because of secrets, she pressed. Perceptive child.
Partly.
I brought you here to keep you safe while the police sort everything out with your parents. This seemed to satisfy them for now, though I knew there would be more questions as they processed everything. We spent the rest of the evening playing board games by the fire, a deliberate attempt at normalcy amid the chaos our lives had become. After putting the twins to bed, I stood at the great room windows, staring out at the moonlight dancing on the lake. My phone rang. Julian. We've found Bradley, he said without preamble. He never made it to Vancouver. He diverted to Seattle instead, where he met with a man identified as Anton Markovich. Who is that? Former military, now works in private security. Or so he claims. He has connections to several high-profile incidents that look suspiciously like professional hits disguised as accidents or robberies gone wrong. My blood ran cold. A hitman. Most likely. We've alerted the FBI, given the interstate nature of the conspiracy. They're moving to apprehend both men, but Markovich slipped surveillance an hour ago. Bradley is still at the hotel in Seattle. And the Mexican connection? Maria? Still at the property in Mexico City. Local authorities are monitoring but haven't moved in yet. I processed this information. Do we know if Markovich has been given my location? Or the twins? Unknown. But we have to assume the worst. I'm sending additional security to the lake house now. They should arrive within the hour. After hanging up, I checked all the doors and windows, though I knew Julian's team had already secured them. The gun in my purse felt simultaneously reassuring and terrifying, a tangible reminder of how drastically my life had changed in just a few days. Catherine arrived shortly before midnight, her face drawn with exhaustion and worry. "How is James?" I asked as she collapsed onto the sofa. "Stable. They pumped his stomach in time. He took a combination of sleeping pills and whiskey." She accepted the glass of bourbon I offered. "Nancy's staying at the hospital tonight. She's processing." "And the police?" "Questioning James as soon as he's coherent. They found documentation in his office safe, records of all the payments to Vanessa, plus what looks like a second set of books for Landmark Investments." "Money laundering?" "Possibly." The detective wouldn't say much. I sank down beside her. "Did you tell Nancy about the twins? That they're actually Richard's biological children?"
No.
"I thought that should come from you." "Thank you." I stared into my own glass. How did we miss so much, Catherine? How did we not see what was happening right under our noses? "Because we trusted them," she said simply. "That's what family does." "Not anymore," I said, a new hardness in my voice. "From now on, I trust evidence and actions, not words or blood ties." We sat in silence for a moment before Catherine asked, "Have you considered that Vanessa might not be the mastermind here?" I looked at her sharply. "What do you mean?" "Think about it. The timing of everything. The elaborate schemes. The multiple angles of attack. It's almost too complex for one person, especially someone like Vanessa who's never had to work a day in her life." "You think someone else is orchestrating this?" "I think it's worth considering. The embezzlement, the poisoning, Bradley's hitman, James's blackmail payments, they all converge around the same goal, controlling the Montgomery fortune. But who else would benefit? Everyone involved is family.
Exactly.
And family knows where all the bodies are buried." She leaned forward. "What if this goes back further than we realize? What if someone has been playing a very long game?" I considered this unsettling possibility. "Like who?" Before she could answer, a security alert pinged on my phone, motion detected at the property's western boundary. "Stay with the twins," I instructed, grabbing my purse with a gun inside. Outside, I found Collier and two of his men already responding, night vision equipment scanning the tree line. "What is it?" I asked quietly. "Single intruder on foot," Collier replied. "Approaching from the service road. Maddox and Chun are moving to intercept." Tense minutes passed as we waited in the darkness. Then Collier's radio crackled. "Target apprehended. You're not going to believe who it is." 5 minutes later, 2 security officers escorted a disheveled, terrified Maria Santos toward the house. "Mrs. Montgomery," she gasped when she saw me. "Thank God. I thought they would find me first. What are you doing here?" I demanded. "You're supposed to be in Mexico City." "I escaped," she said, her accent thicker than usual with fear. "When I realized what they were planning, I couldn't be part of it anymore." "And what exactly were they planning, Maria?" "The children," she whispered. "They're going to take the children tonight." My blood froze. "Bradley?" She nodded frantically. "And the other man, the one with the cold eyes. They're coming here. Tonight." I turned to Collier. "Double the guards on the house. No one gets near those children." "Already done," he assured me. "We've also alerted local law enforcement." I faced Maria again. "Why should I believe you? You were willing to testify that I was mentally incompetent." "They threatened my family back in Honduras," she said, tears streaming down her face. "Said they would hurt my mother, my sisters. I had no choice. But this, taking children, I cannot be part of this." "How did you find us?" "I heard Bradley talking on the phone. He mentioned the lake house. I remembered from when the family used to visit. And how did you get here from Mexico? I took the money from my purse when Bradley was sleeping, bought a ticket to Seattle, then rented a car. I've been driving for hours. Her story seemed plausible, but trust was a luxury I could no longer afford. Take her inside, I instructed Collier. Keep her under guard. If her warning is legitimate, we'll know soon enough. Back in the house, I found Catherine with the twins, who had been awakened by the commotion. What's happening? Emma asked fearfully. Nothing to worry about, I assured her, though my racing heart belied my calm words. Just a security check. Was that Maria I saw? Ethan pressed, peering toward the front windows.
Yes.
She came to tell us something important. Is Dad coming? Emma's voice was small. I exchanged glances with Catherine. We think he might try, but not for a good reason, sweetheart. Is he going to try to hurt you too? Ethan asked, his young face suddenly hard. The security team is here to make sure everyone stays safe, I said, deflecting the question. Now, I need you both to go with your Aunt Catherine to the panic room. The what? Emma looked alarmed. The special room behind Grandpa's study. I explained. The one with all the emergency supplies we showed you last summer. Remember our just-in-case drill? They nodded solemnly. Richard had insisted on installing a secure room when we built the lake house, concerned about his high profile as a wealthy CEO. I'd thought it paranoid at the time. Now I was grateful for his foresight. It's just a precaution, I assured them, like a fire drill. After Catherine led them to the reinforced room hidden behind a bookcase in the study, I conferred with Collier. Maria's story checks out, he reported. Border Patrol confirms she crossed from Mexico to the U.S. 12 hours ago. And there's a rental car registered in her name from Seattle Airport. And Bradley? FBI reports he checked out of his Seattle hotel 3 hours ago. Rental car GPS shows him heading east, potentially in this direction. Markovich. Still in the wind. But we have to assume they're working together. I nodded grimly. How many men do you have on the property? 8, plus myself. All former special forces. All armed. The house is locked down, and we have motion sensors covering every approach. No one gets near this place without us knowing. His confidence was reassuring, but a lifetime in business had taught me that every system had vulnerabilities. I want men specifically assigned to the panic room. If anything happens, the twins are the priority. Already arranged. 2 men are stationed outside the hidden entrance. Even if someone breaches the house, they won't get to those kids. I should have felt relieved. Instead, a strange calm settled over me, the eye of the emotional hurricane that had been building since Vanessa handed me that poisoned champagne. In less than a week, my daughter had tried to murder me. My grandchildren had been revealed as my late husband's biological children. My brother-in-law had attempted suicide, and now my son-in-law was apparently coming to kidnap the twins with a professional killer in tow. The Montgomery legacy had become a Greek tragedy. My phone rang Nancy. James is awake, she said without preamble. And he's talking. Miranda, you need to hear this. I'm dealing with a situation here, I replied, keeping my voice low. Bradley may be coming to take the twins. That's just it, she said urgently. It's not about the twins. Not primarily. It's about the company. What about it? The Chinese acquisition. The one the board is voting on next week. The Huayong deal. A controversial proposal to sell our advanced engineering division to a Chinese conglomerate for $3.2 billion. As controlling shareholder, my vote would decide the outcome. What about it? James says Bradley is working for them. Has been for years. Industrial espionage, insider trading, the works. The attempt on your life, the custody battle for the twins. It's all about controlling the Montgomery shares to force through the Huayong deal. The pieces clicked into place with sickening clarity. Of course, if I died, Vanessa would inherit my controlling interest. If that failed, getting custody of the twins and control of their inheritance would achieve the same goal.
Exactly.
And James claims he only went along with it because they were blackmailing him over the affair with the intern, who, by the way, was planted by Bradley to compromise James in the first place. How convenient for James to claim he was an unwitting pawn, I said skeptically. Maybe. But the police are taking it seriously. They found encrypted communications on James's private server between Bradley and someone at Huayong. They're bringing in the FBI's counterintelligence division. This added a whole new dimension to the conspiracy, no longer just family greed, but international corporate espionage. Does Bradley know James is talking? That's why I called. The police tried to arrest Bradley in Seattle, but he'd already gone. They think someone tipped him off, possibly someone inside the department. He's coming here, I said grimly. For the twins. Miranda, be careful. If he's desperate enough to hire a hitman, I need to go. I ended the call as Collier approached with urgency in his stride. Perimeter alarm on the north side, he reported. 2 heat signatures moving through the woods toward the house. They were here. Get Maria somewhere secure, I instructed. And tell your men to be ready. Mrs. Montgomery, you should join your family in the panic room. I thought of the twins, frightened and confused, waiting behind that reinforced door. I thought of Vanessa as a child, before money and status poisoned her soul. I thought of Richard, who had built all of this for his family's future. No, I said, removing the gun from my purse and checking it one final time. This ends tonight, one way or another. The next hour passed in tense vigilance. Security teams patrolled the property while I waited in the darkened great room, watching the moonlit grounds through floor-to-ceiling windows. Catherine texted from the panic room that the twins were scared but safe, playing cards to distract themselves. Then, at precisely 2:17 a.m., the power went out. Backup generators kicked in immediately, but in those few seconds of darkness, something changed. I sensed rather than saw movement on the deck outside, a shadow separating from shadows. Collier, I called softly into the radio he'd given me. Movement on the west deck. Copy that. Team 2 responding. I moved deeper into the room, positioning myself behind a substantial leather sofa. The gun felt heavy in my hand, alien yet necessary. Glass shattered somewhere at the rear of the house. Shouts erupted, followed by the unmistakable sound of gunfire. Breach at the rear entrance. Collier's voice crackled over the radio. Chen is down. All units respond. More gunfire, closer now. I crouched lower, heart pounding. This was supposed to be a kidnapping, not an assault. What had changed? The answer came in the form of Bradley Harrington stumbling into the great room, wild-eyed and disheveled, blood staining his designer shirt. Miranda, he shouted, his voice frantic. Where are the kids? Safe from you, I replied, standing to reveal myself, gun aimed steadily at his chest. He flinched, then laughed, a high, unhinged sound. Of course you'd have a gun. The mighty Miranda Montgomery, always prepared. It's over, Bradley. The FBI knows everything about the Huayong deal, the espionage, all of it. No, no, no. He shook his head violently. You don't understand. He's going to kill them. Kill us all. Who? Markovich. He's not working for me anymore. He switched sides as soon as they offered more money. Whose side, Bradley? Who's paying him now? A new voice answered from the doorway. I am. I turned, gun shifting toward the sound, and found myself facing a ghost. Hello, Miranda, said Richard Montgomery. You're looking well, considering you think I've been dead for 10 years. The world tilted on its axis. Richard, my husband, the twins' father, the man I'd mourned for a decade, stood before me, older but unmistakable. The same strong jaw, the same piercing blue eyes, the same commanding presence that had built Montgomery Industries from nothing. This isn't possible, I whispered, gun wavering. I buried you. Identified your body. You identified a body, he corrected smoothly. Just not mine. Bradley backed away from both of us, his eyes darting between us like a cornered animal. She knows everything, Richard. About the deal, about the kids. Shut up, Bradley. Richard's voice was as I remembered, deep, authoritative, brooking no argument. He turned his attention back to me. I had hoped to resolve this without seeing you, Miranda. Some attachments are difficult to sever completely. You're dead, I repeated, unable to process the impossible man before me. There was a funeral, a body. There was a man who looked enough like me to pass. Dental records can be manipulated. DNA tests can be compromised. When you have enough money and the right connections, you can disappear quite effectively. Why? It was all I could manage. The company was stagnating. The board was resistant to expansion into emerging markets. As CEO, I was hamstrung by shareholders, by regulations, by your constant insistence on ethical business practices. His lips curled in disdain around the phrase. Dead. I could operate freely, build new connections, create opportunities unfettered by American corporate restrictions. With Huayong, I realized. You've been working with them all along. He inclined his head slightly. They recognized potential that Western investors couldn't see. We've built something remarkable together these past 10 years. And now it's time to bring Montgomery Industries fully into the fold. By killing me? By having our daughter poison me? A regrettable necessity. Vanessa wasn't supposed to be so impulsive. The original plan was more elegant. She's in jail because of you. I said, anger replacing shock. Your own daughter. She's always been a disappointment, he said dismissively. Too emotional. Too easily distracted by trinkets and status symbols. But she served her purpose. And the twins? What purpose do they serve in this sick game? Something flickered in his eyes, perhaps the first genuine emotion I'd seen. They're my legacy, my biological children, conceived to ensure the Montgomery bloodline continues. You knew, I breathed. You arranged the whole thing, the stored sperm, Vanessa accessing it. Of course I knew. I orchestrated it. Montgomery Industries needs a future generation of leadership loyal to my vision, not corrupted by your soft-hearted approach to business. So, you manipulated our daughter into bearing your children. Your own grandchildren. The horror of it made me nauseous. And now you want to take them? They're the future of the Montgomery dynasty. I've monitored their development from afar. Both show remarkable aptitude and intelligence. With the right guidance, away from your influence, they'll be perfect heirs to what I've built. I won't let you take them, I said, raising the gun again. You don't have a choice, Miranda. Markovich and his team have already neutralized most of your security. The rest will fall soon enough. As if on cue, the radio at my hip crackled. Mrs. Montgomery. Collier's voice was strained, punctuated by labored breathing. Multiple hostiles on the property. We're outnumbered. Get to the panic room now. Richard smiled thinly. You see? It's only a matter of time. Bradley, who had been inching toward the hallway during our exchange, suddenly made a break for it. I can get the kids, he called over his shoulder. I know where the panic room is. Without hesitation, I swung the gun toward him and fired. The report was deafening in the confined space. Bradley stumbled, clutching his thigh as blood bloomed through his fingers. He collapsed with a wail of pain. Richard merely raised an eyebrow. Impressive. I didn't think you had it in you. You never really knew me, I replied, turning the gun back on him. Just as I apparently never knew you. Oh, I knew you, Miranda. Your principles. Your maternal instincts. Your pathetic belief in corporate ethics. He took a step forward. What I miscalculated was your resilience. I didn't expect you to survive Vanessa's attempt, or to dismantle her schemes so thoroughly afterward. I've had practice, I said coldly. 10 years running your company while you played dead taught me a few things about handling threats. Yes, well. He glanced at his watch. Entertaining as this reunion has been, I have a schedule to keep. The children need to be on a plane to Hong Kong within 3 hours. They're not going anywhere with you. Don't be dramatic, Miranda. You're outnumbered and outmaneuvered. Surrender now, and I'll ensure you're treated well in retirement. A comfortable villa, somewhere remote. Generous allowance. Regular updates on the twins' progress. A gilded cage. Better than the alternative. His voice hardened. I've never wanted to hurt you, Miranda. Don't force my hand. For the first time, I noticed he was armed as well, a sleek pistol in a shoulder holster partially concealed by his jacket. A crash from somewhere deep in the house was followed by shouts and another burst of gunfire. Time was running out. Richard, I said, forcing my voice to remain steady. Think about what you're doing. Those children have been through enough trauma already. Taking them now, like this, will only damage them further. They're stronger than you think. My blood runs in their veins. And what about James? Your brother? He tried to kill himself tonight because of this tangled web you've woven. A flicker of something, regret? Annoyance, crossed his face. James was always weak, too easily manipulated, too desperate for approval.
He believed you were dead.
He mourned you. We all did. Necessary sacrifices for a greater vision. He gestured impatiently. Enough stalling, Miranda. Put down the gun and tell me where the children are. So you can traumatize them further? Tear them away from everything they know? Turn them into corporate pawns? I'm their father, he said sharply. Their biological father. I have rights. You forfeited those rights when you faked your death and abandoned your family. His expression darkened. Last chance, Miranda. The gun.
Now.
I thought of the frightened children in the panic room, of Vanessa in her jail cell, of James in his hospital bed, all damaged by this man's ruthless ambition. No, I said simply. Richard's hand moved toward his holster. So be it. What happened next seemed to unfold in slow motion. As Richard reached for his gun, the great room windows exploded inward in a shower of glass. Black-clad figures rappelled through the openings, weapons raised. Shouts of FBI. Don't move, filled the air. Richard froze, then in one fluid motion drew his weapon and lunged toward me. I fired without thinking, the bullet catching him in the shoulder. He staggered but kept coming, his face twisted with rage. Before he could reach me, 3 shots rang out in rapid succession. Richard jerked violently, then collapsed to my feet, blood pooling on the hardwood floor. An FBI agent approached cautiously, weapon trained on Richard's prone form. Mrs. Montgomery? Are you all right? I stared down at the man I had loved, mourned, and now shot, the architect of a decade of lies. Yes, I said, my voice distant to my own ears.
Ai fine.
More agents flooded the room, securing Bradley, checking Richard's vital signs, faint but present, radioing for medical support. The children, I said urgently. My grandchildren. We have teams sweeping the house, ma'am. Where are they? Panic room. Behind the study. There's a bookcase that. We'll find them, the agent assured me. You should sit down. You're in shock. Perhaps I was. I allowed myself to be led to a chair, the gun gently removed from my hand. Around me, the lake house had transformed into a tactical operations center, agents communicating on radios, medical personnel rushing in, evidence being documented. A familiar face appeared before me. Detective Reyes. Mrs. Montgomery. Quite a night you've had. How did you find us? I managed. James Montgomery. Once he realized Bradley had been tipped off, he gave us everything. The lake house location, the Huayong connection, even the fact that your supposedly dead husband was very much alive and orchestrating the whole thing. Richard, I murmured. Is he? Alive for now. Multiple gunshot wounds. They're stabilizing him for transport. I nodded numbly. And my security team? Reyes's expression sobered. 2 confirmed casualties. 3 others injured. 1 critically. Markovich and his men were thorough. Did you get him? Markovich. Fled when we arrived. We have teams in pursuit, roadblocks set up. He won't get far. A commotion from the hallway drew my attention. Catherine appeared, an FBI agent at her side, the twins clinging to her like lifelines. Grandma. They broke free, running to me. I enfolded them in my arms, breathing in the scent of their hair, feeling their heartbeats against mine. Are you hurt? I asked, checking them over frantically. We're okay, Emma assured me, though her face was pale. We heard gunshots, The bad men tried to get in, Ethan added. But the door was too strong. I held them tighter. It's over now. You're safe. Over Emma's shoulder, I saw medical personnel wheeling a gurney toward the front door. Richard lay on it, oxygen mask covering his face, for lines already running into his arms. Our eyes met briefly as he passed, a look of cold calculation even now, as if already planning his next move. Who's that man? Ethan asked, following my gaze. How to answer? How to explain that the gurney carried their grandfather, their biological father, and the mastermind behind the plot to kidnap them. Someone who made very bad choices. I said finally. Someone who hurt our family. Catherine joined us, her face drawn with exhaustion. They want to take us all to the hospital to be checked out. Standard procedure, apparently. I nodded, still holding the twins close. Has anyone called Nancy? She should know about Richard. The FBI is handling it, Catherine said. Miranda, is it really him? After all this time? Yes, I confirmed quietly. It's really Richard. He faked his death, Catherine. For 10 years, he's been working with Huayong, planning to take over the company. And the twins? Did he really arrange for Vanessa to? I nodded grimly. His legacy. His future generation of leadership. Those were his words. Catherine looked ill. What kind of monster has he become? I don't know. But he's not the man we thought we knew. As FBI agents escorted us toward waiting vehicles, I caught sight of Maria being led to a separate car, handcuffed. Wait, I called to the agent with her. Is she under arrest? Standard procedure for material witnesses, ma'am. She'll be processed and interviewed. She warned us. I pointed out. She may have saved the children's lives. The agent nodded. That will be taken into consideration. Outside, the night was giving way to the first hints of dawn, pale light filtering through the trees surrounding the property. Ambulances, FBI vehicles, and police cars crowded the driveway, emergency lights painting the scene in surreal flashes of red and blue. As we were helped into an SUV, Emma tugged at my sleeve. Grandma, is Dad going to jail too? Like Mom? I exchanged glances with Catherine over their heads. Yes, sweetheart. I'm afraid he is. And that man on the stretcher? Is he going to jail? If he survives, yes. Ethan frowned. But who will take care of us if both Mom and Dad are in jail? I will, I said firmly. Always. Promise. Emma's voice was small. I promise. I squeezed her hand. We're going to get through this together. All of us. As the SUV pulled away from the lake house, I looked back at the property that had been meant as a family retreat, now a crime scene. In the growing light, I could see the shattered windows, the bullet holes in the siding, the discarded medical packaging on the lawn. The perfect metaphor for what remained of the Montgomery family, broken, violated, but still standing. At the regional hospital, we were separated for examinations. The twins went with Catherine while I was treated for shock and minor cuts from flying glass. A steady stream of FBI agents and police detectives came through for preliminary statements, each promising more comprehensive interviews later. In a quiet moment between interrogations, a nurse brought me a cup of tea and news that made my blood run cold. The man they brought in from the lake house, the one with multiple gunshot wounds, he's asking for you. Richard? She nodded. He's in pre-op. They're preparing him for surgery, but he's insisting on seeing you first. The FBI has cleared it if you're willing. I wasn't sure I was. The emotional whiplash of the past hours, past days, had left me raw and exhausted. But something compelled me to agree. 5 minutes, the FBI agent stationed outside my room stipulated. No more. Richard lay in a trauma bay, surrounded by medical equipment, his skin ashen beneath the harsh fluorescent lights. Monitors beeped steadily, tracking vital signs that seemed improbably strong for a man who had taken 3 bullets. His eyes opened as I approached, the same penetrating blue I remembered, now clouded with pain but still calculating, still assessing. Miranda, he rasped, his voice weak but recognizable. I stood at the foot of his bed, maintaining distance both physical and emotional. They said you wanted to see me. always straight to the point. A ghost of his familiar smile. One of the things I admired about you. What do you want, Richard? I have nothing to say to you. He shifted slightly, wincing at the movement. You should know, not everything was a lie. Save it. I'm not interested in deathbed confessions or manipulations. The twins, he continued as if I hadn't spoken. They need protection.
Not just for me.
From Huayang. What are you talking about? Insurance policy, he wheezed. If I died, they'd target the children. To control the patents. A chill ran through me. What patents? Subdermal implants. Military applications. Worth billions. You put this target on our family, I said, anger displacing shock. On our grandchildren. Your children, as you so proudly claimed them. Didn't anticipate betrayal. Within Huayang. He grimaced, either from pain or frustration. Safe deposit box. First National. Key in my right shoe. One of the nurses moved forward. Sir, we need to prep you for surgery now. Richard's eyes locked with mine, suddenly urgent. Miranda. Listen. The children blood type. Check their blood type. What about it? Not compatible with mine. His breath came in labored gasps now. Not my biological. The medical team swarmed in, pushing me aside as alarms began to sound. BP dropping. He's going into shock. I backed away, Richard's final words echoing in my mind as he was rushed toward surgery. Not his biological children? Then whose? In the waiting room, I found Nancy sitting alone, her elegant composure finally cracked. She looked up as I approached, her eyes red-rimmed but dry. They told me, she said simply, about Richard, that he's alive. I sat beside her, suddenly aware of the absurdity of the situation. Two women united by their connection to a man who had betrayed them both in the most fundamental ways. I'm sorry, I offered inadequately. For what? You didn't know either. She gave a brittle laugh. 10 years. He let his own brother believe he was dead for 10 years. Let you believe you were a widow. Let all of us grieve and move on while he what? Built some secret empire in China? Apparently. And the twins? They're really his? I hesitated, Richard's final words lingering. That's complicated. And honestly, I don't know what to believe anymore. Nancy was silent for a moment. James is being transferred here. The FBI wants all the principals in one secure location. He's still under guard, still facing potential charges for his role in all this. And how do you feel about that? She sighed deeply. I don't know. He was manipulated, yes. But he also made choices, terrible ones. Choices that hurt people. She looked at me directly. I've filed the divorce papers already. I understand. Do you? She asked. Could you have divorced Richard if he hadn't died? If you discovered his true nature while he was still your husband? The question struck at something deep and uncomfortable. I'd like to think so. But we never really know what we're capable of until we're tested. Nancy nodded, seeming to accept this. The children are asking for you. They're in the pediatric ward, 3rd floor. I found Emma and Ethan in a shared room, Catherine dozing in a chair between their beds. Their faces brightened when they saw me. Grandma. The doctor said we're totally fine, Ethan announced proudly. Just a little shock, Emma added. And they gave us hot chocolate. That's wonderful news, I said, bending to kiss each of their foreheads. I was so worried about you both. Aunt Catherine said we're super brave, Ethan continued. Like real Montgomerys. The family name, once a source of pride, now carried the weight of deception and betrayal. Yet hearing it from Ethan's innocent lips reminded me that legacies could be reclaimed, redefined. You are very brave, I agreed. And very loved. Emma, always the more perceptive of the two, studied my face. Grandma? That man who got shot. The one on the stretcher. Who is he really? I glanced at Catherine, who had awakened at my entrance. She nodded slightly, encouraging honesty. He's your grandfather, I said carefully. My husband, Richard Montgomery. Their eyes widened in perfect synchronization. But Grandpa died before we were born, Ethan protested. We thought he did, I explained. He made everyone believe that. But he was actually hiding, working with some not very nice people. Is he the one who sent the bad men to take us? Emma asked. Yes. But why would Grandpa want to hurt us? Ethan's brow furrowed in confusion. He didn't want to hurt you, I clarified. He wanted to take you away from me, to raise you himself in his own way. We wouldn't go with him, Emma declared fiercely. We want to stay with you. And you will, I promised. No one is going to take you away. A nurse appeared in the doorway. Mrs. Montgomery? There's a call for you at the nurse's station. The FBI says it's urgent. I'll be right back, I told the twins, squeezing their hands reassuringly. At the nurse's station, I was handed a phone. Mrs. Montgomery speaking. Ma'am, this is Special Agent Lawson. We've just received information you need to be aware of immediately. The blood samples taken from the twins during their examination, they've been rushed for special analysis.
Why?
Are they ill?
No, ma'am.
But given Richard Montgomery's statement about their biological parentage, we thought it prudent to verify. Preliminary results confirm they are not his biological children. My mind reeled. Then whose are they? The DNA comparison is still being processed, but the blood typing alone rules out Richard Montgomery. We're currently running comparisons against all family members in our database, including samples from James Montgomery and yourself. Myself? That's absurd. I'm their grandmother. Ma'am, in cases like this, we have to explore all possibilities, no matter how unlikely they seem. After hanging up, I stood frozen at the nurse's station, my world tilting once again. If the twins weren't Richard's biological children, everything he'd claimed about orchestrating their conception was a lie. But then whose children were they? And why would Vanessa access Richard's stored sperm if not to use it? Unless a memory surfaced, Vanessa's pregnancy announcement, her insistence on using the Montgomery family fertility clinic despite living in another state. The clinic where both Richard and I had undergone fertility treatments years earlier, when we were trying for a second child after Vanessa. The clinic where my own eggs had been harvested and stored, just as Richard's sperm had been. Oh my God, I whispered. Miranda? Catherine had followed me from the twins' room. What is it? I turned to her, my voice barely audible. I think the twins might be mine.
What?
How is that possible? My eggs were stored at the same clinic as Richard's sperm. If Vanessa accessed both, the implications were staggering. The twins wouldn't just be my grandchildren, they would be my biological children as well, carried by my daughter. We need to confirm this, Catherine said pragmatically. Before jumping to conclusions, the FBI is already running the tests. I leaned against the counter for support. Catherine, if this is true, if they're mine, then Richard was lying about orchestrating their conception, she finished for me. Which means there's more to this conspiracy than we've uncovered. Before I could respond, alarms began blaring throughout the hospital. A voice over the intercom called a code silver, active shooter. Catherine and I exchanged horrified glances before sprinting back toward the twins' room. We were too late. The room was empty, the beds disheveled. A nurse lay unconscious on the floor, a security guard slumped beside her. Emma, Ethan, I called frantically, checking the bathroom under the beds. A phone on the bedside table buzzed with an incoming text. It was Catherine's, left behind in her rush to follow me earlier. The message contained a single line. Insurance policy activated. The children are mine now. Anton Markovich. Markovich had the twins. The world collapsed into a singular, terrible focus. The twins were gone. Code silver. All personnel implement lockdown procedures. The hospital intercom continued blaring as staff rushed to secure doors and move patients to safety.
How?
I gasped, staring at the empty beds. There were FBI agents everywhere. Catherine grabbed my arm. The service elevator. It's right across the hall. We rushed to the security station, where monitors showed feeds from throughout the hospital. A harried security officer was frantically scanning through footage. There, Catherine pointed at a screen showing a man in hospital scrubs pushing a gurney with what appeared to be a small covered patient. Following close behind was another staff member escorting a child. "That's them," I said, my voice tight with fear. "Where does that elevator go?" "Basement level. Ambulance, bay, and morgue," the officer replied, already reaching for his radio. "All units, suspects with abducted children heading toward ambulance bay." Special Agent Lawson appeared at my side, his expression grim. "Mrs. Montgomery, we're locking down the entire hospital. All exits are being covered." "It's too late," I said, pointing to another monitor that showed an ambulance pulling away from the bay, lights flashing but no siren. "They're already gone." "License plate." Lawson barked at the security officer. "Camera angle doesn't show it, sir." "Track all ambulances dispatched from this facility in the last hour." "There weren't any scheduled departures," the officer said, checking his log. "That's a stolen vehicle." Lawson was already on his radio, issuing commands for roadblocks and helicopter surveillance. I stood frozen, watching the ambulance disappear from the screen, taking my grandchildren, possibly my biological children, with it. "Miranda." Catherine's voice broke through my paralysis. "We need to think. Why would Markovich take them now? Why not at the lake house?" "Insurance policy." I repeated Richard's words. He said if anything happened to him, Huayong would target the children. So Markovich is working for Huayong now? Or was all along? I turned to Lawson. "Richard Montgomery is in surgery. You need to put your heaviest security on that operating room. And check every staff member. Markovich could have accomplices still in the hospital." Lawson nodded, dispatching agents with a gesture. "Mrs. Montgomery, I need you to stay here, where we can protect you."
"No."
The word came out with more force than I intended. "Those are my grandchildren. I'm not sitting here while some mercenary takes them God knows where. We have agents pursuing. And I have resources you don't," I interrupted. "Private security, corporate jets, international connections. I'm coming with you." Something in my expression must have convinced him arguing would be pointless.
"Fine."
"But you follow my lead, stay with your assigned protective detail, and do exactly as instructed. Are we clear?" "Crystal." Catherine squeezed my hand. "I'll coordinate from here. Keep you updated on Richard's condition and any developments." Within minutes, I was in an FBI tactical vehicle racing toward the regional airport. Lawson had received intelligence that a private jet was scheduled for departure to Hong Kong within the hour, a jet registered to a shell company linked to Huayong Enterprises. "How did Markovich get past your security?" I asked as we sped through early morning traffic, lights flashing. "Professional. Multiple disguises. Took out 2 agents with some kind of aerosol sedative." Lawson's jaw was tight. He had inside help, someone who knew exactly when the shift change was happening. "Someone inside the FBI? Or the hospital? We're investigating." He glanced at me. "What else did Richard tell you? Anything that might help us understand what Huayong wants with the children?" I recalled Richard's labored words. He mentioned patents. Subdermal implants with military applications. Said they were worth billions. Montgomery Industries doesn't hold any patents for subdermal technology. Not publicly, no. But Richard had a habit of developing black book projects, research too sensitive or potentially controversial for public disclosure. I thought back to conversations years ago, before his death. There was something called Project Prometheus. Richard was obsessed with it. Human enhancement technology. The board shut it down as ethically problematic, but what if he continued it in secret? During his death? Lawson was already relaying this information to his team. And the children? How do they factor in? I don't know yet, but Richard said something about checking their blood type, that they weren't compatible with his. I hesitated, then decided full disclosure was necessary. "Your lab is testing my DNA against theirs. I believe they might actually be my biological children, conceived using my harvested eggs without my knowledge." Lawson's expression didn't change, but his eyes sharpened with interest. If that's true, it could explain Huayong's interest. Genetic connection to the patent holder. My phone rang. Julian Blackwood. Mrs. Montgomery, I've located the ambulance. Traffic cameras picked it up heading west on Highway 18, then turning north toward the private airfield. We're en route there now. What about Markovich? Facial recognition confirmed it's him, disguised as a paramedic. 2 other men with him, plus the children. They appear unharmed, but sedated. How far ahead of us are they? 15 minutes, maximum. But Mrs. Montgomery, there's something else. Bradley Harrington is dead. My grip tightened on the phone.
What? How?
Shot at close range in his hospital room. Security cameras were disabled for precisely 2 minutes. Professional hit. Markovich tying up loose ends, Lawson muttered beside me. Or eliminating witnesses who could testify against Huayang, I thought grimly. Julian, I need you to do something for me, I said. Contact Nancy Montgomery. Tell her to check James's blood type immediately and compare it to the twins. It's urgent. May I ask why? Because I think we've all been played in a much longer game than we realized. After hanging up, I turned to Lawson. We need to consider the possibility that James Montgomery is the twins' biological father, not Richard. Based on Richard's dying words. The fact that Vanessa blackmailed James for years. What if the paternity claim wasn't entirely fabricated? What if she actually did use James's genetic material, perhaps obtained during a medical procedure, and combined it with my harvested eggs? Creating children that would have a genetic claim to Montgomery Industries through both bloodlines, Lawson finished connecting the dots. Genetically both your children and James's, but raised as Vanessa's. The perfect pawns in a long-term corporate takeover strategy. The implications were staggering. And if Richard discovered this after faking his death, it would explain why he returned now, trying to secure the children before the Huayang acquisition went through. Lawson accelerated as we approached the airport turnoff. But why would Vanessa be part of this scheme? What was her motivation? Money. Status. The same things that have always driven her. I stared out at the passing landscape, thinking of my daughter's lifelong sense of entitlement. But I suspect she was manipulated too, a pawn in a larger game orchestrated by Richard and Huayang. We pulled up to a security checkpoint at the private airfield, Lawson flashing his credentials. FBI. Where's the Hong Kong flight? Hangar 3, the guard replied, pointing. But they've already begun taxiing. Beyond the checkpoint, I could see a sleek Gulfstream moving toward the runway, its engines whining as it picked up speed. We're too late, I breathed. No, we're not. Lawson grabbed his radio. Eagle 1, this is ground team. Target is on the runway, preparing for takeoff. You are authorized to implement Protocol Chimera. Within seconds, a black helicopter appeared over the tree line, descending rapidly toward the runway. As the jet began its takeoff roll, the helicopter dropped lower, positioning itself directly in the plane's path. What are they doing? I gasped. They'll crash. No, they won't. Lawson's voice was grimly confident. Markovich is a professional. He won't risk the children in a collision. Sure enough, the jet's engines reverse thrust, the plane decelerating rapidly as the pilot aborted takeoff. The helicopter maintained position, effectively blocking the runway. All units move in, Lawson ordered, our vehicle lurching forward as we sped toward the jet. What followed was a tense standoff. The jet remained motionless on the runway, surrounded by FBI vehicles. Lawson used a bullhorn to demand the passengers disembark, warning that the plane would be breached by force if necessary. After 10 excruciating minutes, the jet's door finally opened. A man I recognized as Anton Markovich appeared at the top of the stairs, hands raised. I have 2 children on board, he called. They are unharmed, but sedated. I will release them in exchange for safe passage. That's not how this works, Lawson replied through the bullhorn. Send out the children, then surrender yourself. Markovich smiled thinly. I have a dead man switch. If I'm arrested, certain documents will be released implicating very powerful people in very illegal activities. People who would prefer those documents remain private. We don't negotiate with kidnappers, Lawson stated firmly. I'm not a kidnapper. I'm an employee fulfilling a contract. Markovich's calm was unnerving. The children were never going to be harmed. They were simply being relocated per prior arrangement with their biological father. Richard Montgomery is in custody, Lawson countered. Any arrangements he made are null and void. Markovich's smile widened. Who said anything about Richard Montgomery? A chill ran through me. Before I could process his meaning, Julian called again. Mrs. Montgomery, I've spoken with Nancy. James's blood type is AB negative. The twins are both AB negative. And Richard's blood type? I asked, already suspecting the answer. Oh, positive. He couldn't possibly be their biological father. The pieces clicked into place with sickening clarity. And mine? AB negative as well. It matches. I thanked Julian and turned to Lawson. James Montgomery is their biological father. And I'm their biological mother. Vanessa carried her own half-siblings, thinking they were her father's children. Lawson absorbed this information with professional detachment. That gives us leverage. He raised the bullhorn again. Markovich, new information has come to light. The children's paternity is not what you were told. Your contract is based on false premises. Markovich hesitated, visibly processing this claim. After a moment, he retreated inside the jet for a brief consultation. When he reappeared, his demeanor had changed subtly. I require verification of this claim, he called down. We have blood type confirmation and DNA testing in progress, Lawson replied. Richard Montgomery is not the biological father of those children. Your client has misled you. Another pause, another consultation inside the plane. Then, surprisingly, Markovich nodded. Send one person up to collect the children. Unarmed. Lawson turned to me. It should be someone they know and trust. I'll go, I said immediately. Mrs. Montgomery, that's not advisable. They're my grandchildren. Possibly my biological children. I'm going. After a tense negotiation, it was agreed. I would board the plane, retrieve the twins, and Markovich would be granted a 5-minute head start before pursuit resumed. Not ideal, but the children's safety was paramount. As I climbed the jet stairs, my heart hammered against my ribs. Markovich waited at the top, his expression unreadable. Mrs. Montgomery, he greeted me calmly. A pleasure to finally meet you properly. Where are they? I demanded, in no mood for pleasantries. He gestured toward the cabin. Sleeping comfortably. The sedative is mild. They'll wake within the hour with no side effects. I brushed past him into the luxurious cabin. Emma and Ethan lay on plush seats that had been converted to beds, buckled in safely, breathing steadily. Relief nearly buckled my knees. Why? I asked Markovich as I checked each child. Why go through with the kidnapping if Richard's plan was falling apart? Professional integrity, he replied simply. I complete my contracts. Even when your employer has lied to you? That remains to be verified. He glanced at his watch. You have 3 minutes to deplane with the children. After that, my associates have instructions to take off, regardless of who remains on board. I unbuckled Ethan first, lifting his dead weight into my arms. He stirred slightly, but didn't wake. I'll need help with the second child. Markovich hesitated, then nodded to one of his men, who carefully lifted Emma. Together, we made our way to the door. At the top of the stairs, Markovich paused. Mrs. Montgomery, a word of advice. Trust no one in the Montgomery family, not even those you believe are allies. Before I could respond, he disappeared back into the cabin. With the help of FBI agents, we got the twins safely to a waiting ambulance. As promised, Lawson allowed the jet 5 minutes before ordering pursuit. It's too late anyway, he admitted as we watched the plane take off. He'll have countermeasures ready. Multiple decoy vehicles, false flight plans. Markovich is too experienced to be caught easily. I don't care about him right now, I said, turning toward the ambulance where paramedics were checking the twins. I just want to make sure the children are all right. Back at the hospital, now locked down like a military installation, the twins were admitted for observation. Their vital signs were strong, the sedative already beginning to wear off. I sat between their beds, holding a hand of each, as Catherine joined me. They look so peaceful, she remarked, as if this were just a normal nap after a tiring day. If only. I squeezed their small hands gently. Any word on Richard? Out of surgery. Critical but stable. They removed 2 bullets, but the third fragmented near his spine. They're not sure if he'll walk again. And James? Conscious. Cooperative. The FBI has been questioning him for the past hour. She hesitated. Miranda, they've confirmed it. The DNA results are preliminary but conclusive. You and James are the biological parents of the twins. Though I'd already suspected it, hearing the confirmation still felt like a physical blow. How is this possible? How could Vanessa have accessed both our genetic material without our knowledge? James says he provided a sperm sample years ago during a routine physical. Standard procedure for executive health screening at Montgomery Industries. He never thought anything of it, and my eggs were harvested during fertility treatments when Richard and I were trying for a second child. I shook my head in disbelief. Someone at that clinic was part of this conspiracy. Someone with access to stored genetic material. The FBI is investigating the clinic now. But Miranda, there's more. Catherine looked troubled. According to James, Richard approached him about the Huayong deal nearly 11 years ago, before his death. Said it was the future of the company, that Western markets were too restrictive. When James refused to support it, Richard became threatening. So Richard faked his death to pursue the deal independently. I reasoned. But why the elaborate scheme with the twins? Why use James's and my genetic material to create children? Insurance, Catherine suggested. Children with genetic ties to both the CEO's wife and his brother would have the strongest possible claim to the company in the event of succession disputes. But Vanessa was already Richard's heir. Why complicate things? Because he didn't trust Vanessa, came a voice from the doorway. Nancy stood there, looking exhausted but resolute. James has been talking nonstop since he heard about the kidnapping. Apparently, Richard always thought Vanessa was too unstable, too easily manipulated. He wanted heirs he could control from the beginning, raised by Vanessa, but genetically engineered to be the perfect Montgomery successors. And Vanessa agreed to this? I asked incredulously. To carry children created from her uncle's sperm and her mother's eggs?
She didn't know, Nancy said.
Richard told her the eggs were from an anonymous donor. She believed she was carrying her father's children, preserving the Montgomery lineage. My God, I whispered, looking down at the twins' peaceful faces. What kind of monster orchestrates something like this? The kind who fakes his own death and spends a decade building a secret corporate empire, Catherine said grimly. Emma stirred then, her eyelids fluttering. Grandma, she murmured. I'm here, sweetheart, I said, stroking her hair. You're safe now. The bad men took us, she said, becoming more alert. They said we were going on a special trip. I know, but you're back with me now, and I won't let anyone take you again. Ethan was waking too, more groggy than his sister. My head feels weird, he complained. You were given medicine that made you sleep, I explained gently. It will wear off soon. Are the bad men gone? Emma asked, fear creeping into her voice.
Yes.
They can't hurt you anymore. As the twins became more alert, a nurse came to check their vital signs. They're doing remarkably well, she reported. No adverse reactions to the sedative. They should be able to be discharged tomorrow. Thank you, I said, relief washing over me. Special Agent Lawson appeared in the doorway. Mrs. Montgomery, may I speak with you privately? In the hallway, his expression was grave. We've had a development. Richard Montgomery is awake and asking to see the children. Absolutely not. I replied immediately. I agree. But he's offering information, critical information about Huayong's operations and the true nature of the subdermal implant technology, in exchange for 5 minutes with them. He's manipulating you. Again. Perhaps. But if what he's suggesting is true, this technology could pose a significant national security risk. We need to know exactly what he's developed and who has access to it. I considered this. What sort of information is he claiming to have? He says Huayong has already begun human testing of the implants, devices that can enhance strength, speed, cognitive function, military applications. And he claims the twins were supposed to be the next test subjects. Horror washed through me. He was going to experiment on his own children? Not his, as we now know. But yes, that appears to have been the plan. Lawson's expression was carefully neutral. Mrs. Montgomery, I can't force you to allow this meeting. But the intelligence value. I'll speak to him. I interrupted.
Alone.
If his information seems credible, then we can discuss whether the children should be involved. Lawson nodded. That's reasonable. He's in the secure wing, room 412. Richard looked diminished against the white hospital sheets, tubes, and wires connecting him to various machines. Guards stood at attention outside his door, and his wrists were secured to the bed rails with padded restraints. A man who had once commanded a corporate empire, now a prisoner in a hospital bed. His eyes, those familiar blue eyes that had once looked at me with love, then with calculating coldness on the night of his return, tracked my movement as I entered the room. Miranda, he greeted me, his voice stronger than I expected. They told me you were coming. I'm not here for a reunion, Richard. I'm here because you claim to have information about Huayong and this implant technology. Always direct. A ghost of a smile. You haven't changed. You have, I replied coldly. The Richard Montgomery I knew wouldn't have faked his death, abandoned his family, or orchestrated the creation of children for experimental purposes. The Richard you knew was constrained by laws and ethics that hampered innovation, he said, a hint of his former passion animating his features. What I've developed at Huayong will transform human potential. Enhance soldiers, workers who never tire, executives with perfect recall and analytical capabilities beyond current imagination. At what cost? Experimenting on children? Your own grandchildren? They're not my grandchildren, he corrected. As I'm sure you've discovered by now, there's something far more interesting, a genetic blend of you and James. The perfect Montgomery hybrid. How did you arrange it? I demanded. How did you get access to our genetic material? Money opens many doors. The fertility clinic's director was quite accommodating when I explained my research project. Of course, he didn't know the full implications. And Vanessa? Did you manipulate our daughter into being a surrogate for children she believed were yours? Vanessa was easy to convince. She'd already been diagnosed with fertility issues. I simply suggested using my stored sperm with an anonymous egg donor as a solution. She was delighted to continue the Montgomery bloodline directly. The casual way he discussed this monstrous deception made my stomach turn. And you plan to use these children, my children, as test subjects for your implants? They were genetically perfect candidates, and they would have been well compensated. The enhancements would have given them advantages beyond normal human capabilities. They're children, Richard, not lab rats. He sighed, as if I were being obtuse. Progress requires sacrifice, Miranda. Always has. Is that what you told yourself when you faked your death? When you let your family grieve for a decade while you built your secret empire? I did what was necessary for the greater vision. I leaned closer, keeping my voice low and controlled.
No, Richard.
You did what fed your ego and your God complex. And now you've lost everything. Your freedom, your company, and any chance of a relationship with your family. Something flickered in his eyes, perhaps the first genuine emotion I'd seen. Not everything is lost. The technology still exists. The research continues, with or without me.
Where?
Who has it? That's my bargaining chip, isn't it? What I offer in exchange for seeing the twins. You will never see those children, I said firmly. Not now, not ever. Then Huayong continues development without oversight. The first enhanced operatives are already in the field, Miranda. Imagine what happens when that technology proliferates. When hostile states have soldiers with twice the strength, 3 times the endurance, and cognitive processing that makes current AI look primitive. Tell that to the FBI. I'm sure they'll be interested. They won't find anything without my help. The real research facility isn't even in China. It's hidden in plain sight, operating under a different name, different ownership. I studied him, trying to separate truth from manipulation. Why would you betray Huayang now, after everything you've built with them? Because they betrayed me first, he said simply. When I was shot at the lake house, they activated contingency protocols, cutting ties, eliminating loose ends. Bradley's death wasn't an accident. Markovich didn't just change sides. He was always their operative, not mine. So, this is about revenge? It's about legacy. Richard's eyes bored into mine. The twins are still my legacy, Miranda. Biologically, James is, yes, but conceived under my direction, for my purpose. I want 5 minutes to explain that to them, to help them understand their potential. Never, I repeated. I'll die before I let you near them again. Something in my tone must have convinced him, because his expression changed, calculation replacing persuasion. Then we have nothing more to discuss, he said coldly.
Go.
Raise them as ordinary children. Waste the genetic potential I orchestrated. I'll raise them as loved children, Richard. Something you seem incapable of understanding. As I turned to leave, he called after me. The research facility is in Vancouver. Novatech Biologics. You have perhaps 48 hours before they relocate everything. I paused at the door. Why tell me now? Insurance, he said simply. Against Huayang. They've already tried to eliminate me once. This ensures they know I've shared their secrets. I relayed this information to Lawson, who immediately began coordination with Canadian authorities. Whether Richard was telling the truth or playing another angle remained to be seen, but the lead couldn't be ignored. The next 24 hours passed in a blur of activity. The twins were discharged, their resilience astounding the medical staff. James was formally arrested for his role in the conspiracy, though his cooperation was leading to reduced charges. And Vanessa remained in jail, now facing additional charges related to the fraudulent use of genetic material. I requested a meeting with her, needing answers that only she could provide. The detention center's visiting room was cold and impersonal, a stark contrast to Vanessa's carefully curated life of luxury. She entered in her orange jumpsuit, somehow still managing to carry herself with regal posture despite the circumstances. "Mother," she greeted me coolly. "I heard about the excitement at the lake house. Father's miraculous resurrection. How biblical." "You knew," I said, cutting through her affected nonchalance. "You knew he was alive all this time." Her mask slipped slightly. "Not at first. Not until after the twins were born. He contacted me then, explained his grand vision. And you went along with it? Your own father faked his death, manipulated you into carrying children created from my eggs and your uncle's sperm, and you just accepted it. What was I supposed to do?" A flash of genuine emotion crossed her face. He was Richard Montgomery, the great visionary, the business genius. He had a plan for everything, everyone, including me. You could have told me the truth. We could have faced him together. And lose everything he promised me? The position at Huayang, the money, the power? She shook her head. Besides, by then the twins were born. What good would exposing the truth have done? It would have been honest. It would have stopped this decade-long deception. Honesty is overrated when billions are at stake. She studied me curiously. How are they taking it? The twins? Learning that their grandmother is actually their biological mother. They don't know yet, I admitted. They've been through enough trauma. That revelation can wait until they're older, more able to process it. And James? How's dear Uncle Daddy handling his new paternal status? I ignored the jab. James is cooperating with authorities. His testimony will likely put both you and Richard away for a very long time. Of course he is. Vanessa's lip curled in disdain. James was always weak, always looking for approval. Yet you blackmailed him for years with a paternity claim that was actually true. Did you know? When you started blackmailing him, did you know he was really their father? She hesitated, then shrugged. I suspected. The timing worked out too perfectly. Father was always meticulous in his planning. Using James's genetic material created an additional layer of Montgomery control. but I couldn't be certain until I saw how similar the twins looked to James as they grew older. And you used that suspicion to extort money from him. I prefer to think of it as compensation for services rendered. Her smile was brittle. Carrying and raising the next generation of Montgomerys isn't easy work. I regarded my daughter, this stranger who shared my blood, but none of my values. Why did you try to kill me, Vanessa? Was it really just about money for a purse? For the first time, she looked genuinely uncomfortable. It wasn't supposed to happen that way. What way was it supposed to happen? Father had a plan. A gentle, progressive poisoning that would mimic cognitive decline. Enough to have you declared incompetent, not enough to kill you. She wouldn't meet my eyes. But when you refused me the money for the Birkin, when you humiliated me in front of Bradley, I decided to accelerate the timeline. By trying to murder me at my own birthday dinner. I was angry, she said, as if that explained everything. You've never denied me anything before. It felt like betrayal. The irony of her using that word nearly made me laugh. And now, any regrets about trying to poison your mother? Only that I didn't succeed, she replied coldly. If I had, none of this would have happened. I'd still have my life, my status, my children. They were never really yours, I said quietly. They were pawns in Richard's game. Just like you. Just like all of us. Something flickered in her eyes. Perhaps the first recognition that she too had been manipulated by the master manipulator. What happens now? She asked, a hint of vulnerability creeping into her voice. You face trial for attempted murder, fraud, conspiracy, and a host of other charges. Richard faces similar charges, plus treason for his work with Huayang. James will likely serve minimal time due to his cooperation. And I will raise the twins as my own. They're my children, she protested. I carried them, birthed them, raised them, and tried to sell them to Huayang as test subjects, I countered. The court will take that into consideration when determining custody. As I stood to leave, Vanessa called after me. They'll always know me as their mother. Biology doesn't change that. I turned back. No, it doesn't. And when they're old enough to understand, I'll make sure they know your role in their lives. But I'll also make sure they know the whole truth, that they were created as experiments, that you were willing to sacrifice them for money and status, and that in the end, you chose your own interests over their well-being. Her face contorted with rage. You self-righteous bitch. You think you're so perfect?
Somoro?
You'll fail them just like you failed me. Perhaps, I acknowledged. But I'll love them unconditionally. Something you never experienced because your father and I were too focused on building an empire to notice we were losing our daughter's soul. That silenced her. For a brief moment, I glimpsed the wounded child beneath the vengeful woman, the little girl who had grown up believing her worth was measured in dollar signs and social status. Goodbye, Vanessa, I said softly. I'll always love the daughter I once had, even if I can never forgive the woman she became. 3 months later, the Montgomery saga reached its public conclusion in a federal courtroom packed with media and spectators. Richard Montgomery, the business titan who had faked his death and conspired with foreign interests, was sentenced to 30 years for treason, fraud, conspiracy, and numerous other charges. Confined to a wheelchair from his gunshot wounds, he showed no emotion as the judge delivered the sentence. Vanessa received 15 years for attempted murder and conspiracy, with no possibility of parole for at least 10. She maintained her composure until the very end, when the reality of a decade behind bars finally cracked her carefully constructed facade. James Montgomery, in exchange for his extensive cooperation, received 5 years probation and community service. His testimony had been instrumental in dismantling the Huayang conspiracy and locating the research facility in Vancouver, where Canadian authorities had seized mountains of evidence related to the illegal implant technology. The Montgomery Industries Board, under my direction, had initiated a comprehensive audit and restructuring. The Huayang deal was permanently scrapped, the company's focus redirected toward ethical innovation and corporate responsibility. The stock had taken a hit initially when the scandal broke, but was steadily recovering as investors recognized the value of transparency and principled leadership. As for the twins, Emma and Ethan were thriving under my care. They remained in therapy, processing the traumatic events and the gradual revelation of their complicated origins. We had begun with the simplest truth, that their parents had done bad things and couldn't care for them anymore, and would add layers of understanding as they grew older and better able to comprehend the full story. Nancy had surprised everyone by staying in the city, taking an apartment near ours, and becoming a steadfast presence in the twins' lives. "They're the only family I have left," she explained simply, "and they need all the love and stability they can get." Catherine, too, had been unwavering in her support, often staying with us to help with the children's routines and activities. Between the three of us, we had created a female-led family unit that provided the twins with consistency, boundaries, and unconditional love, everything they had lacked in Vanessa and Bradley's home of material excess and emotional poverty. On a crisp autumn morning, I sat on a park bench watching Emma and Ethan play soccer with other children their age. Their laughter carried across the field, uninhibited and genuine. Catherine joined me, handing me a coffee.
"They look happy," she observed.
"They are," I agreed. "Most days. There are still nightmares sometimes, questions I don't know how to answer. But they're resilient." "Like their mother," she said, then quickly clarified. "Their biological mother, I mean." I smiled faintly. That still feels surreal, being their biological mother, but functionally their grandmother. Someday we'll have to explain the full genetic truth to them. When they're ready. Catherine sipped her coffee thoughtfully. "Have you heard from Julian about Markovich?" "Still in the wind. The FBI thinks he's in Eastern Europe, but the trail has gone cold." I shrugged. "Honestly, I'm not sure I care anymore. He returned the children unharmed once he learned the truth. In his own twisted way, he is a code." "Unlike Richard," Catherine said darkly. "Unlike Richard," I agreed. We watched the twins play in comfortable silence for a while before Catherine spoke again. "The house on Lakeview Drive sold yesterday. Over asking."
"Good."
"Too many bad memories there." After the events at the lake house, I had decided to sell both properties, the family estate and the lake house, and purchase a spacious but more modest home in a family-friendly neighborhood. The twins needed normal childhoods, not mansions filled with ghosts. "What about the Montgomery name?"
Catherine asked.
"Will you change theirs? Or yours?" I had considered this extensively.
"No."
They've lost enough already. Their parents, their home, their sense of security. I won't take their name, too. Besides, I added with a hint of defiance, I refuse to let Richard and Vanessa destroy what that name once stood for. We'll reclaim it, redefine it. Miranda Montgomery, rebranding expert. Catherine teased gently. Something like that. My phone buzzed with a text from Nancy. Court documents came through. "You now have full legal custody. Congratulations, Mom." A lump formed in my throat. After months of legal battles, DNA tests, psychological evaluations, and court appearances, it was official. Emma and Ethan were legally, as well as biologically, mine. "Good news?" Catherine asked, noting my expression. "The best," I confirmed, showing her the text. "It's final. They're mine." "They always were," she said softly. "Biology just confirmed what your heart already knew." As if sensing they were being discussed, the twins looked over from their game and waved enthusiastically. I waved back, my heart full in a way I hadn't experienced since they were born, a complex mixture of maternal love, protectiveness, and fierce determination to give them the childhood they deserved. Richard Montgomery had orchestrated their creation as part of his twisted legacy, genetic experiments designed to further his corporate ambitions. Vanessa had carried them believing they were her father's children, then leveraged them for money and status. James had unwittingly contributed to their existence, then been blackmailed over a paternity that was actually true. But in the end, they were just children, bright, sensitive, resilient children who needed love and stability more than genetic engineering or corporate destinies. "Mom," Ethan called, using the term we had carefully transitioned to over recent weeks. "Watch this." He executed a surprisingly skillful kick, sending the soccer ball sailing into the net. Emma cheered. high-fiving her brother with unbridled enthusiasm. "Did you see?" he shouted. "I saw." I called back. "Wonderful job." As they returned to their game, Catherine squeezed my hand. "You're doing an amazing job with them." "I'm trying," I said. "Every day, I'm trying to undo the damage that greed and ambition did to this family." "Not just trying," she corrected. "Succeeding." Perhaps she was right. The Montgomery legacy had been poisoned by Richard's megalomaniacal vision and Vanessa's toxic entitlement. But here, in this park, with these children who carried my DNA but were so much more than genetic experiments, I was reclaiming that legacy, redefining it through love rather than power, through ethical choices rather than corporate machinations. When my spoiled daughter had handed me that poisoned champagne, she had unwittingly set in motion a chain of events that would ultimately save her children from a fate worse than death, being pawns in Richard Montgomery's twisted game of corporate chess. By surviving that poisoned glass, I had ensured the twins would survive too, not just physically, but emotionally and spiritually. Sometimes, I reflected as I watched them play, the most potent antidote to poison is truth. And sometimes, family isn't what you're born into, but what you build from the ashes of betrayal. Emma scored a goal and looked to me immediately for approval. I gave her a thumbs up and she beamed, her face alight with simple joy. In that moment, I knew with bone-deep certainty that whatever challenges lay ahead, explaining their origins, protecting them from the Montgomery notoriety, helping them process their parents' crimes, we would face them together as the family we were always meant to be. Not the family Richard engineered through deception and manipulation. Not the family Vanessa pretended to cherish while plotting murder. But the family we had chosen to become, forged in the crucible of betrayal, strengthened by truth, and ultimately redeemed by love.